A single father drowning in debt. A billionaire CEO fighting for her child. One impossible offer that will change everything. Marry me for 1 year and I'll pay you $200,000. What starts as a cold contract becomes something far more dangerous because some deals cost more than money and some marriages become real when you're not looking. This is their story. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor buzzed with that particular frequency that made Evan Cole's headache worse. He sat in a plastic chair outside room 347, his daughter Maya asleep against his shoulder, her small hand clutching the worn fabric of his jacket. She was 6 years old and shouldn't have to spend her Tuesday evenings like this, breathing in antiseptic and watching her grandfather fade. Mr. Cole? Evan looked up to find Dr. Pacheco standing there with that expression doctors wore when the news wasn't going to get better. He carefully shifted Maya onto the chair beside him, tucking his jacket around her small frame. How long? Evan asked, because there was no point in pretending anymore. Weeks. Maybe a month, if we're lucky. Dr. Pacheco's voice was gentle, but firm. The cancer spread faster than we anticipated. I'm sorry. Evan nodded slowly, his throat tight. His father had been sick for 8 months, but somehow he'd convinced himself there would be more time. There was never enough time. The bills, Evan started, then stopped. He knew what the answer would be. I'll have billing send you an updated statement, Dr. Pacheco said. But Mr. Cole, you should know, the palliative care alone is going to run about $15,000 for the next month. That's not counting the medications or the potential hospice transition. $15,000. Evan wanted to laugh. He had $900 in his checking account and a credit card that was already maxed out. His construction job paid the rent and kept food on the table. Barely. His father's insurance had run out months ago. Yeah, Evan said. Thanks, Doc. After Dr. Pacheco left, Evan sat back down and pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from his landlord. A text from his boss asking if he could pick up a double shift this weekend. Another reminder from the electric company that his payment was past due. He opened his banking app and stared at the number. $847.23. His father was dying, and Evan couldn't even afford to let him die comfortably. Maya stirred against him, her eyes fluttering open. Is Grandpa okay? He's sleeping, baby, Evan said, smoothing her dark hair back from her face. We'll check on him in a minute. I'm hungry. Of course she was. They'd come straight from her after-school program, and he hadn't had time to grab anything. How about we hit the vending machine? You can pick whatever you want. Her face lit up the way only a 6-year-old's could over processed snacks from a hospital vending machine. As they walked down the corridor, Maya's hand tight in his, Evan tried to calculate how many more shifts he could possibly pick up without completely falling apart. The vending machine ate his last $5 bill without dispensing anything. Evan closed his eyes and counted to 10. It's okay, Daddy, Maya said, tugging on his hand. I'm not that hungry. That was what broke him, not the medical bills or his dying father or the impossible math of his life, but his little girl trying to make him feel better about not being able to buy her a bag of chips. He knelt down in front of her. We're going to be okay, he said, and hoped it wasn't a lie. Well, the next morning, Evan was on a job site in Midtown when his phone rang from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Debt collectors had gotten creative lately, but something made him swipe to accept. Is this Evan Cole? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. Yeah, who's this? My name is Patricia Vance. I'm calling on behalf of Sabrina Vale. Ms. Vale would like to meet with you this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Are you available? Evan pulled off his work gloves, confused. I think you've got the wrong guy. I don't know any Sabrina Vale. Ms. Vale knows of you through mutual acquaintances. This is a business matter. The meeting will take place at Vale Industries headquarters. I can send a car for you. Look, lady, I'm working. I can't just... Ms. Vale is prepared to compensate you for your time. $500 for 1 hour of conversation. Will that be sufficient? Evan went still. $500 for an hour of talking? It had to be a scam. Or worse. What kind of business are we talking about here? That's something Ms. Vale prefers to discuss in person. The car will arrive at your location at 1:30. I'll need your current address. $500. That was groceries for 2 weeks. That was a payment toward the electric bill. That was... Fine, Evan heard himself say. He gave her the address of the construction site. Excellent. Oh, and Mr. Cole, come as you are. Ms. Vale appreciates authenticity. The line went dead. Evan stared at his phone for a long moment, then went to find his foreman. Whatever this was, he had a feeling his afternoon was about to get very strange. The car that arrived at 1:30 was not what Evan expected. He'd been picturing maybe a town car, something reasonably nice. What pulled up was a black Mercedes S-Class with a driver in an actual suit. Mr. Cole? The driver opened the rear door. I'm here to take you to Miss Vale. Evan looked down at his work boots, his dusty jeans, the t-shirt that had definitely seen better days. She said to come as I am. Yes, sir. The interior of the car was nicer than his entire apartment. Evan sat carefully, trying not to get construction dust on the leather seats. As they pulled into traffic, he found himself running through every possible scenario. Drug running, money laundering, some kind of bizarre reality TV prank. But $500 was $500, and his father needed medication that cost $280 a bottle. Vale Industries was housed in one of those glass towers that dominated the Midtown skyline. The kind of building Evan had worked on but never actually entered through the front door. The driver took him through a private entrance that led directly to a bank of elevators. Top floor, the driver said. Ms. Vance will meet you there. The elevator was faster than any Evan had been in. His ears popped. When the doors opened, he stepped into a reception area that looked like something out of a magazine. All clean lines and expensive art, and a view of the city that made his stomach drop. Patricia Vance turned out to be a woman in her 50s with silver hair and the kind of presence that suggested she didn't take shit from anyone. She looked Evan up and down once, nodded as if he'd passed some test, and gestured toward a set of double doors. Ms. Vale is expecting you. The office beyond was even more intimidating than the reception area. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk that probably cost more than Evan made in 6 months. And behind that desk, a woman who looked up from her laptop as he entered. Sabrina Vale was younger than he'd expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a style that probably had a fancy name, and eyes that assessed him in about 3 seconds flat. She wore a black suit that fit like it had been made for her body specifically, and when she stood to offer her hand, Evan was struck by 2 things. She was tall, maybe 5'10", and she looked exhausted in a way that money couldn't hide. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. Her handshake was firm, businesslike. Please, sit. Evan sat in a chair that was probably worth more than his car had been before it died. Ms. Vale, I have to admit, I have no idea why I'm here. Direct. I appreciate that. She sat back down, folding her hands on the desk. I'm going to be equally direct with you, Mr. Cole. I need a husband. Evan blinked. Excuse me? Not permanently. 1 year. In exchange, I'm prepared to pay you $200,000. The words didn't make sense. Evan heard them individually, but strung together they formed something impossible. I'm sorry, did you just... I need to be married to maintain custody of my daughter. Sabrina's voice was completely calm, like she was discussing a business merger and not proposing to a stranger. I'm in the middle of a custody battle with my ex-husband. James is trying to prove I'm an unfit mother because I prioritize my career. His lawyers are painting a picture of a cold, absent parent. A stable marriage would significantly improve my position. So hire a lawyer, or, I don't know, actually date someone? I have the best lawyers money can buy. They're the ones who suggested this approach. Sabrina pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. As for dating, I don't have time to develop a genuine relationship, and I'm not interested in one. What I need is a business arrangement with clear terms and boundaries. Evan opened the folder. Inside was what looked like a contract, dense with legal language, along with several pages of background information. On him. You investigated me. Of course I did. I'm not an idiot, Mr. Cole. Sabrina's tone was matter-of-fact. You're 32 years old. You work construction. You're a single father raising a 6-year-old daughter. Your wife died 4 years ago in a car accident. You have no criminal record, no history of substance abuse, no concerning patterns. You're drowning in medical debt because your father has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. You're about to lose your apartment because you're 2 months behind on rent. You're exactly what I need. Evan's jaw tightened. Hearing his life reduced to bullet points by the stranger made him feel exposed in a way he hated. And what exactly do you need? A man who's stable, presentable, and desperate enough to agree to this. She said it without cruelty, just stating facts. You need money. I need legitimacy. The arrangement benefits both of us. What about your daughter? Evan asked. You're going to bring a stranger into her life? Something flickered in Sabrina's eyes, the first real emotion he'd seen from her. My daughter is the only thing that matters to me, which is why I'm doing this. James is fighting for full custody, and he has the legal team to make it happen. I won't lose her. How old is she? 5. Her name is Sophie. Sabrina pulled up something on her phone and turned it toward him. The photo showed a little girl with dark curls and her mother's serious eyes, wearing a ballet outfit and trying very hard not to smile. Evan thought of Maya, of how he'd do anything to protect her. He understood that kind of desperation, but this was insane. $200,000, he said slowly. Yes. Half up front, half at the end of the year. You and your daughter would move into my house in Westchester. It's important that we establish a genuine household. You'd attend social functions with me, participate in family activities, present the image of a stable married couple. The marriage would be legal but platonic. Separate bedrooms, no expectation of physical intimacy. What about my job? You'd quit. I need you available to play the role of supportive husband and father figure. Consider it your job for the year. You'll be compensated accordingly. Evan leaned back, his head spinning. This is crazy. This is practical. Sabrina closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. I've thought through every angle, Mr. Cole. The risks, the logistics, the legal implications. This is the best solution to both our problems. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're a good father. I know you show up for your responsibilities even when it's hard. I know you're honest. You could have lied on your background check, inflated your credentials, tried to seem more impressive than you are. You didn't. She paused. I know you're the kind of man who would sit in a hospital corridor all night because your father needed you there. That's the kind of stability I need to show the court. Evan stared at her. How did you... I told you. I did my research. He looked down at the contract again, at numbers that could change his entire life. $100,000 up front. That would cover his father's care. It would pay off his debts. It would give Maya the stability she deserved. But it would also be a lie. A massive, carefully constructed lie. I need to think about it, Evan said. Of course. Take 24 hours. Sabrina pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my personal number. Call me by this time tomorrow with your answer. Evan stood, tucking the folder and card into his jacket. Can I ask you something? Yes. Why me? Out of everyone you could have chosen, why someone like me? Sabrina met his eyes, and for the first time since he'd walked into her office, she looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Because you'll do it for the right reasons, she said quietly. You'll do it for your daughter and your father. Not for money or status, or because you think you can leverage it into something else. You'll do it because you're desperate and decent, and that's exactly what I need the court to see. A decent man who chose to build a life with me. Evan didn't have an answer for that. He just nodded and left. That night, after Maya was asleep and Evan had checked on his father, weaker now, sleeping more, he sat at his small kitchen table with the contract spread out in front of him. The terms were clear. 1 year, starting immediately after the marriage. He and Maya would move into Sabrina's house. He would be expected to attend public events, family functions, anything that reinforced the image of a stable marriage. He would have full access to household finances for reasonable expenses. In exchange, he'd receive $100,000 upon signing and another $100,000 at the end of the 12 months, provided he fulfilled all terms of the agreement. There were clauses about confidentiality, about what would happen if either party violated the terms, about the divorce that would be filed exactly 1 week after the contract ended. It was all very cold, very clinical, very much a business transaction. Evan thought about Maya's face when the vending machine had eaten their last $5. He thought about his father's medical bills stacking up. He thought about the eviction notice he'd shoved in a drawer because he couldn't bear to look at it. He thought about what it would be like to lie for an entire year. To look people in the eye and pretend to be in love with a woman he didn't even know. To let his daughter believe in a family that was just an arrangement. But then he thought about the alternative, about watching his father die in pain because he couldn't afford proper care. about Maya growing up in a car, or worse, in the system if he couldn't keep things together. At midnight, Evan picked up his phone and dialed the number Sabrina had given him. She answered on the second ring. "Mr. Cole." "I have conditions," Evan said. "I'm listening. My daughter doesn't know this is fake. As far as Maya's concerned, this is real. I'm not going to tell a 6-year-old that Daddy's pretending to be married for money." "Agreed. Sophie won't know either." "I want my own account for the money. I make the decisions about how it's spent." "That's literally the point of paying you. And if at any point this starts hurting my daughter, if she's confused or scared or unhappy, I'm out. Contract or no contract?" There was a pause. Then Sabrina said, "I have the same condition regarding Sophie. Their well-being comes first. We're in agreement." "Then I need you to understand something, Ms. Vale." Evan's voice was steady. "I'm doing this for my family. Not because I like you or trust you or think this is anything other than completely insane. I'm doing this because I'm out of options. But if you treat my daughter with anything less than respect, if you make her feel small or unwanted or like she's a burden, we're done. Money or no money." "Noted. And for the record, Mr. Cole, I don't need you to like me. I need you to show up and play your part. Can you do that?" Evan closed his eyes, thought of Maya, thought of his father, thought of the crushing weight of bills he couldn't pay and a future that looked darker every day. "Yeah," he said, "I can do that." "Good. I'll have Patricia send over the paperwork. We'll schedule the wedding for this weekend. Small ceremony, just what we need for the legal documentation. Patricia will handle your move to Westchester. Oh, and Mr. Cole?" "What?" "Welcome to the family." The line went dead. Evan sat in his dark kitchen for a long time, staring at the contract that was about to change his life, and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or the only choice he had left. The wedding happened 72 hours later in a courthouse downtown. Patricia Vance had arranged everything with the kind of ruthless efficiency that made Evan understand how Vale Industries had become a billion-dollar company. He wore a suit that Patricia had delivered to his apartment, expensive enough to photograph well, but not so expensive that it looked unnatural on him. Sabrina wore cream, simple and elegant, and looked at him across the courthouse lobby like he was a business associate she was meeting for the first time. "Ready?" she asked. "Not even a little bit." "Good. That makes 2 of us." They'd left the girls with their respective babysitters. This wasn't about them, not yet. This was just paperwork, just making it legal so that when the court reviewed Sabrina's custody arrangement, they'd see a married woman with a stable household. The actual ceremony took 12 minutes. They stood in front of a judge who'd clearly performed hundreds of these and didn't care about the emotional weight of the moment. Evan said, "I do," and slipped a ring onto Sabrina's finger, a ring that Patricia had picked out because neither of them had thought about it until the night before. Sabrina did the same, her fingers cool and steady against his. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Sabrina kissed him. It was brief, professional, and completely devoid of any actual feeling. When she pulled back, her expression hadn't changed at all. They signed the papers. Patricia took photos for the social media announcement Sabrina's PR team had prepared. Evan stood next to his new wife and smiled for the camera, and felt like he was watching someone else's life unfold. "All right," Patricia said, checking her phone. "The movers will have Evan's things at the house by this evening. We've scheduled a family dinner for tomorrow night, something casual. Let the girls meet each other in a low-pressure environment. Sabrina, I've briefed the household staff on the situation. They'll be discreet." "Thank you, Patricia." Sabrina turned to Evan. "I have meetings this afternoon. Patricia will drive you back to your apartment to say goodbye to your father. Then she'll bring you to the house." "You're not coming?" "Why would I? This is your personal matter." She said it without any apparent awareness of how cold it sounded. "I'll see you at dinner." She left, heels clicking on the marble floor, already on her phone before she'd made it to the exit. Patricia gave Evan a look that might have been sympathetic. "She's not great with emotions." "I'm getting that. But she's serious about the custody situation, about protecting Sophie. That's real, even if the rest of this is complicated." "Yeah," Evan said. "Complicated. That's one word for it." His father was awake when Evan arrived at the hospital, more lucid than he'd been in days. Evan sat beside the bed and took his father's hand, feeling how thin it had become. "Hey, Dad. You're wearing a suit." His father's voice was weak but still held a trace of humor. Someone die? Worse, I got married. His father's eyes focused on him with surprising sharpness. Married? To who? Evan had thought about what to say. He'd practiced the lie. But sitting there, holding his dying father's hand, the words stuck in his throat. Her name's Sabrina, he finally said. It happened fast, really fast. But she's good, Dad. She's going to help us. Does Maya like her? They haven't met yet. That happens tomorrow. His father studied him for a long moment. You're scared. Yeah, that's how you know it matters. His father squeezed his hand weakly. Your mom and I, we were terrified. 22 years old, no money, no plan, but we showed up for each other every day. That's all marriage is, Ev. Showing up. Evan felt something tight in his chest. I'll show up. Then it'll be okay. His father closed his eyes, exhausted from the brief conversation. Bring her to meet me. I want to tell her what an enormous pain in the ass you were as a teenager. I will, I promise. But even as he said it, Evan knew it was another lie. His father didn't have weeks left, maybe days. And Sabrina Vale had no interest in meeting the dying man who was only a variable in her custody equation. The house in Westchester was exactly what Evan had expected. Enormous, perfectly maintained, completely impersonal. He pulled up the long driveway in Patricia's car and stared at the 3-story colonial that was about to become his home for the next year. The staff knows you're arriving, Patricia said. Maria is the house manager. She'll show you and Maya to your rooms. Your things should already be unpacked. Rooms? Plural? You have a bedroom in the east wing. Maya has her own room next to yours. We've decorated it based on the preferences you indicated. There's a playroom on the second floor that she'll share with Sophie. Evan rubbed his face. This is insane. Yes, but it's also 7 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a pool, and enough space that you won't feel like you're on top of each other. Try to focus on the practical benefits. Maya had been quiet since Evan picked her up from school and told her they were moving. She sat in the back seat now, clutching her stuffed elephant and looking out at the massive house with wide eyes. Daddy, is this where we're going to live? Yeah, baby. This is our new home. It's really big. Yeah, it is. Does it have a yard? A huge one. Come on, let's go check it out. Maria turned out to be a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and an efficient manner. She took one look at Maya's nervous face and immediately knelt down to her level. You must be Maya. I'm Maria. I help take care of the house. Are you hungry? I made cookies this afternoon. Maya looked at Evan for permission. He nodded. Okay, Maya said softly. As Maria led them through the house, past rooms that Evan couldn't begin to name, through a kitchen that was bigger than his entire old apartment, he felt the weight of what he'd agreed to settling on his shoulders. This wasn't his world. He didn't belong in a place with a media room and a wine cellar and probably a panic room somewhere. Their rooms were on the second floor. Maya's was painted a soft purple, with a bed that looked like something from a princess movie and shelves already stocked with books and toys. Ms. Vale wanted Maya to feel welcome, Maria explained. If there's anything she needs, anything at all, you just let me know. Maya was already exploring, running her hands over the soft bedding, peeking into a closet that was probably bigger than her old bedroom. Evan's room was next door, connected by a bathroom. It was tastefully decorated in neutrals, masculine without being aggressively so. There was a desk by the window, a king-sized bed, a chair for reading. All his clothes had been unpacked and hung in the closet with the same care that had been given to Maya's things. It felt like a very nice hotel room. Impersonal. Temporary. Ms. Vale's room is in the west wing, Maria said. Sophie's room is next to hers. The playroom is between both wings, so the girls can meet in neutral territory, so to speak. Where's Sophie now? At dance class. Ms. Vale will bring her home around 6. Dinner is at 7. 6 hours. Evan had 6 hours to figure out how to explain to his daughter that they were living in this mansion because he'd married a woman she'd never met. Thanks, Maria, he said. After she left, Maya came to stand beside him. I like my room. Yeah, that's good. But I miss our apartment. Evan pulled her into a hug. I know, baby. This is a big change. But we're going to be okay here. I promise. Do I have to call Ms. Vale Mom? The question caught him off guard. What? No, Maya, you don't have to call her anything you don't want to. Okay, good. Maya pulled back, looking up at him seriously. Because I only have one mom, even if she's in heaven. Evan's throat went tight. That's right. You only have one mom, and nothing's going to change that. But Ms. Vale is your wife now. Yeah, it's complicated, baby. Adults always say that when they mean something is weird. Evan couldn't help but laugh. You're right, it is weird, but we're going to figure it out together, okay? Okay. Maya went back to exploring her new room, and Evan stood at the window looking out at the massive yard, the pool, the property that stretched farther than he could see. He'd sold his life for this. Sold it for a year, for money, for his father's medical care and Maya's future. He just hoped it was worth the price. Dinner was awkward in a way that Evan hadn't fully anticipated. Sabrina arrived home at 6:30, Sophie in tow. The little girl was small for 5, all dark curls and cautious eyes, wearing a pink leotard under her jacket and clinging to her mother's hand. They met in the foyer, 2 fathers and 2 daughters, standing in a space that could have held Evan's entire old apartment. Sophie, this is Evan and his daughter Maya, Sabrina said, her voice softer than Evan had heard it before. They're going to be living with us now. Sophie stared at them without saying anything. Maya, never one to be shy for long, gave a little wave. Hi, I like your house. Thank you, Sophie whispered. Do you want to see my room? It's purple. Sophie looked up at Sabrina, who nodded. Go ahead, stay on this floor. Your Hans. The girls disappeared down the hallway, Maya chattering about the stuffed animals Maria had arranged on her bed. The adults stood in silence. How was the move? Sabrina asked, in the tone of someone making mandatory small talk. Fine. Maria was very helpful. Good. Dinner's at 7. I usually eat in the dining room, but I thought tonight we could use the kitchen table, more casual. Sure. More silence. Evan had never been good at small talk, and Sabrina seemed to have no interest in it. They stood there like strangers at a bus stop until Sophie came running back. Mama, Maya has a stuffed elephant, and she said I could hold him. That's nice of her, sweetheart. Sabrina brushed a curl from Sophie's face. Go wash your hands for dinner. Sophie ran off. Sabrina turned to Evan. She's shy. It'll take her time to warm up to you. That's fine. Maya can be overwhelming. I'll make sure she gives Sophie space. I'd appreciate that. Dinner was a strange affair. Maria had made something kid-friendly. Pasta with butter and cheese for the girls, a more elaborate chicken dish for the adults. They sat at a table that could seat 12. The 4 of them clustered at one end, the rest of the chairs empty and accusing. Maya talked enough for all of them, asking Sophie questions about school and dance class and whether she liked playing outside. Sophie answered in monosyllables, but Evan could see her slowly relaxing, the wariness in her eyes fading just a little. Sabrina ate methodically, occasionally interjecting to correct Sophie's manners or to answer Maya's more ambitious questions. She was patient with the girls in a way that surprised Evan, not warm exactly, but attentive, like she'd studied how to be a good mother and was executing the steps carefully. Maya, we don't talk with our mouth full, Evan said when his daughter launched into a story mid-bite. Sorry, Daddy. Sabrina glanced at him, something unreadable in her expression. Sophie, elbows off the table. After dinner, Sabrina suggested the girls play in the playroom while she and Evan talked. They ended up in what she called the study, another room with more books than Evan had ever owned in his life and furniture that probably cost more than a year of his old rent. We need to establish some ground rules, Sabrina said, closing the door, about how this is going to work. Okay, the girls are the priority. Whatever else happens, we keep things stable for them. Agreed. I work long hours. I usually leave by 7 and I'm home around 6, sometimes later. I'll try to be home for dinner most nights, but I can't guarantee it. What about Sophie? Who takes care of her while you're gone? Maria helps, and we have a nanny, Rachel, who comes in the mornings. But now that you're here... Sabrina paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. I'm hoping you can take on some of those responsibilities. School drop-offs, afternoon activities, that kind of thing. That's fine. Maya's got school until 3. I can handle both. Good. There's a car in the garage you can use, a Volvo SUV. Practical. Safe. Of course, she'd already thought of that. Probably had it detailed and registered in his name before he'd even agreed to any of this. What about custody hearing? Evan asked. When is it? 6 weeks. My lawyer wants us to establish a pattern of stable family life before then. That means family dinners, weekend activities together, attendance at Sophie's dance recitals, that kind of thing. Okay. We'll also need to do a few public appearances. There's a charity gala next month. Vale Industries sponsors it. We should be seen there together. Evan thought about wearing a tux and making small talk with billionaires. I don't really do galas. You do now. Patricia will get you fitted for formal wear. You don't have to be charming, Evan. You just have to show up and not embarrass me. The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, like his only value was in not being a liability, made something twist in Evan's gut. But he swallowed it down because this was the deal. This was what he'd signed up for. Fine. One more thing. Sabrina met his eyes. We need to be convincing. That doesn't mean we have to like each other or even talk much when we're alone. But in public, around the girls, in front of the staff, we need to sell this. The court's going to be looking for any signs that this marriage is fake. I know how to play a part. Good. Because a lot is riding on this. She stood clearly ready to end the conversation. Evan stayed seated. Can I ask you something? Sabrina paused. What? Why are you so sure you're going to lose custody? You've got money, resources, a stable home. What's your ex-husband got that's so much better? For the first time since they'd met, Sabrina looked genuinely uncomfortable. She crossed her arms, defensive. James is a partner at one of the top law firms in the city. He has family money, connections, and a very sympathetic narrative. The devoted father fighting against the career-obsessed mother who's never around. He's also engaged to a kindergarten teacher who bakes and volunteers and will make the perfect stepmother in the eyes of the court. But you're Sophie's mom, which means nothing if the court decides she'd be better off with him. Sabrina's voice went hard. I've built a billion-dollar company from scratch. I employ 3,000 people. I've revolutionized medical device manufacturing, but none of that matters because I'm not home by 5 o'clock every day to make cookies. Evan heard the anger there, buried under the control. That's bullshit. Welcome to family court. Sabrina walked to the door, then stopped. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm mother of the year. I work too much. I'm not great at the emotional stuff. But Sophie is mine, and I'm not letting James take her just because his fiancée fits society's picture of what a mother should be better than I do. Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Sabrina looked at him for a long moment. You actually mean that? I told you, I'm here for the right reasons. Your daughter deserves to stay with her mother. We'll make the court see that. Something shifted in Sabrina's expression, not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of it. Thank you. After she left, Evan sat in the study for a while, looking at the life he'd walked into. A mansion, a fake marriage, a billionaire who didn't know how to be soft, and a little girl who needed her anyway. He thought about his father, about how he'd said marriage was just about showing up. Maybe that was true even when the marriage wasn't real. Maybe especially then. The first week in the mansion felt like living in a museum where Evan wasn't supposed to touch anything. He woke up every morning in a bed too big for one person, in a room too quiet, and had to remind himself that this was real. That he'd actually married a stranger for money and moved his daughter into a house with more bathrooms than his old apartment building had units. Maya adapted faster than he did. By day 3, she'd mapped out every room, discovered the pool house, and declared the kitchen her favorite place because Maria let her help make cookies. Sophie remained cautious, watching Maya's enthusiasm from a distance, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to join in. Evan tried to establish some kind of routine. He got both girls up in the morning, made them breakfast while Sabrina drank coffee and reviewed reports on her tablet, then drove them to their respective schools in the Volvo that still smelled new. He'd pick them up in the afternoon, supervise homework at the kitchen table, and try to facilitate some kind of bonding between two little girls who had nothing in common except that their parents had made a very strange decision. Sabrina was barely there. She left before 7 every morning and came home after 6 most nights, sometimes later. When she was home, she was present with Sophie in a way that was careful and deliberate, asking about her day, checking her homework, sitting through 15 minutes of ballet practice in the living room. But there was a stiffness to it, like Sabrina was following a script for how to be a good mother and couldn't quite make it look natural. On Thursday of that first week, Evan was in the kitchen making dinner when Sabrina came home early. She stopped in the doorway, surprised to find him at the stove. You cook? Yeah, is that a problem? No, we have Maria for that. Maria has the night off. And I can't eat takeout every night. Evan stirred the pasta sauce. It's nothing fancy, just spaghetti. Sabrina set her briefcase down, loosening her collar. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that went bone deep. Where are the girls? Playroom. They're building something with Legos. Well, Maya's building. Sophie's watching and occasionally handing her pieces. That's progress, I suppose. It's slow, but yeah, it's something. Sabrina poured herself a glass of wine from a bottle that probably cost more than Evan used to make in a week. She leaned against the counter, watching him cook with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're different than I expected, she said finally. How so? You actually care about the domestic stuff. Most men I know wouldn't. She stopped, shook her head. Never mind. Wouldn't what? Know how to cook? Take care of their kids? Evan kept his voice even. I've been doing this alone for 4 years. You learn fast when there's no other option. Right, your wife. Rachel. Her name was Rachel. Evan dumped the pasta into boiling water. She was driving home from work when a guy ran a red light. Maya was 2. One day she had a mom, the next day she didn't. So yeah, I learned to cook, and do laundry, and braid hair even though I'm terrible at it. Sabrina was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. That must have been. It was. But we got through it. He didn't want her pity. Didn't want to talk about Rachel with this woman who'd bought her way into his life. Dinner will be ready in 10 minutes. Can you get the girls? Sabrina set down her wine glass and went to collect Sophie and Maya. Evan listened to their voices in the other room. Maya's excited chatter, Sophie's quiet responses, Sabrina's careful questions. It sounded almost like a real family if you didn't know better. They ate at the kitchen table again. Evan had tried the formal dining room once and decided it was too ridiculous for a Tuesday night. Sabrina didn't argue, which surprised him. She seemed to prefer the kitchen anyway, like the smaller space made it easier to manage the performance of family dinner. This is really good, Sophie said softly, twirling spaghetti on her fork. Thank you, sweetheart. Maya grinned at her. My daddy makes the best spaghetti. He puts in the secret ingredient. What's the secret ingredient? Sophie asked, leaning forward. Can't tell you. It's a secret. Maya's expression was completely serious. But maybe if you're really nice, he'll tell you when you're older. Evan caught Sabrina's eye across the table. She almost smiled. Almost. After dinner, while the girls watched a movie in the den, Evan cleaned up the kitchen. He was elbow-deep in soapy water when Sabrina appeared again. We have a dishwasher. I know, I like doing it by hand. Gives me time to think. About what? About how surreal this all is, Evan thought. About my father dying in a hospital while I play house with a billionaire. About whether I'm screwing up my daughter's life with this lie. Nothing important, he said. Sabrina picked up a dish towel and started drying the plates he'd set in the rack. Evan glanced at her, surprised. What? I'm capable of basic tasks. Didn't say you weren't. They worked in silence for a few minutes. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't hostile either. Just 2 people doing dishes because they needed to be done. I have to go to Chicago next week, Sabrina said. Business trip, 3 days. Okay. I was thinking it might be good if you came with me. We could take the girls, make it a family thing. There's a children's museum Sophie likes. Evan rinsed a pot, thinking. You want us to come with you on a business trip? I want the court to see that we do things together as a family. My lawyer suggested it. Normal families take trips together. Right, normal families. Evan dried his hands. What about Sophie's school? Maya's? It's just 3 days. They'll survive. That's not really how parenting works. You can't just pull kids out of school whenever it's convenient. Sabrina's jaw tightened. I'm aware of how parenting works. Are you? Because you're gone 12 hours a day, and when you are home, you look like you'd rather be anywhere else. The words came out harsher than Evan intended. Sabrina set down the dish towel, her expression going cold in a way that reminded him exactly who she was and who he wasn't. Careful, Evan. I'm just saying, if you want the court to believe this is real, maybe try actually being around sometimes. I have a company to run, 3,000 employees who depend on me. You have a daughter who depends on you too. Sabrina's face went very still. For a second, Evan thought she might fire back, might remind him that he was the hired help here, that his opinion on her parenting meant exactly nothing. But instead, she just looked tired. You think I don't know that? Her voice was quiet. You think I don't feel it every single day? The fact that I can't be what she needs? That no matter how hard I try, it's never enough? Evan hadn't expected that, hadn't expected the crack in her armor. I didn't mean, yes, you did, and you're right. I'm not good at this. I didn't have a great example growing up. My mother was more interested in her social calendar than her kids. I swore I'd be different, and instead She stopped, shook her head. I'm doing exactly what she did, building an empire and missing everything that matters. That's not true. Sophie knows you love her, does she? Because most of the time I feel like I'm just going through the motions, playing the part of a mother without actually knowing how to be one. Evan leaned against the counter. You know what Rachel used to say? She said parenting was just showing up and hoping you don't screw them up too badly. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just faking it and hoping for the best. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Kind of. Look, you're not going to win any Mother of the Year awards, but you're here. You come home for dinner. You watch her practice ballet even though you've got 100 emails waiting. That counts for something. Sabrina studied him for a long moment. Why are you being nice to me? I'm not being nice. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Most people aren't honest with me. They tell me what they think I want to hear. Well, I'm not most people. I'm the guy you're paying to pretend to be your husband. Might as well get some honesty out of the deal. That almost got a real smile out of her. Almost. Fair enough. So about Chicago, we'll go. But we're doing actual family stuff while we're there, not just showing up for photos and then disappearing into meetings. Agreed. I'll have Patricia book the flights and hotel. After Sabrina left to put Sophie to bed, Evan stood in the kitchen for a while, thinking about that conversation, about the woman behind the CEO mask, the one who was just as lost as he was, trying to figure out how to make this work. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Both of them faking it, both of them desperate, both of them trying to protect their daughters from their own failures. The thought should have been depressing. Instead, it was almost comforting. The hospital called on Friday morning while Evan was dropping the girls at school. His father had taken a turn during the night. They needed him to come in. Evan's hands went numb on the steering wheel. He'd known this was coming, had been preparing for it, but knowing and being ready were two completely different things. He called Sabrina from the parking lot. She answered on the first ring, her voice crisp and professional. I need to go to the hospital. My father... I'll handle pickup. Go. Are you sure? I know you have... Evan, go. I'll take care of the girls. He made it to the hospital in 20 minutes that felt like hours. His father was unconscious, the machines around him beeping steadily, but somehow wrong. Dr. Pacheco met him in the hallway. We've made him comfortable. It's just a matter of time now. Hours, maybe a day. Evan nodded because speaking felt impossible. He went into the room and sat beside his father's bed and took his hand like he had 100 times before. But this time was different. This time he was saying goodbye. Hey, Dad, it's me. His voice cracked. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. His father didn't respond, just kept breathing, shallow and labored, each breath a little harder than the last. Evan stayed there all day, holding his father's hand and talking to him about nothing and everything. About Maya, about the new house, about how weird it was to have a pool. He didn't mention Sabrina or the fake marriage or the money. Some lies were meant to stay buried. Around 4, his phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina. Girls are fine. Take your time. Then another one. I'm sorry. Evan stared at those 2 words for a long time. He hadn't expected sympathy from her. Hadn't expected her to care about anything beyond how this affected the appearance of their arrangement. At 6:30, his father's breathing changed. Got slower. More shallow. Evan squeezed his hand. It's okay, Dad. You can let go. I've got Maya. We're going to be okay. His father took one more breath. Then nothing. The machine started alarming. Nurses came in. Dr. Pacheco appeared with gentle hands and gentle words. Someone was talking to him about next steps and paperwork and arrangements, but Evan couldn't hear any of it over the roaring in his ears. His father was gone. He'd known it was coming, had been bracing for it for months, but somehow he still wasn't ready. Would never be ready. Evan sat in that hospital room for another hour, not ready to leave, not ready to face what came next. Finally, a nurse touched his shoulder gently. "Mr. Cole, is there someone we can call? Someone who can come get you?" Evan pulled out his phone with numb fingers and somehow managed to dial Sabrina's number. She answered immediately. "Evan?" "He's gone." His voice didn't sound like his own. "My father, he's... Where are you?" "Mount Sinai. But I can get home, I just need... Stay there, I'm coming." "You don't have to..." But she'd already hung up. 30 minutes later, Sabrina walked into the hospital room, still wearing her work clothes, her heels clicking on the linoleum. She took one look at Evan's face, and something in her expression shifted. "Come on," she said quietly. "Let's get you home." "I need to sign papers, make arrangements. We'll do it tomorrow. Right now you need to leave." Evan let her guide him out of the room, down the corridor, into the elevator. He moved like he was underwater, everything distant and muffled. Sabrina kept a hand on his elbow, steady and solid. In the car, her car, driven by her usual driver, she didn't try to make conversation, just sat beside him in silence while the city blurred past the windows. Evan was grateful for that. He couldn't have managed small talk right now. When they got back to the house, Maria met them at the door, her face sympathetic. "The girls are asleep. I fed them dinner and got them ready for bed." "Thank you, Maria." Sabrina turned to Evan. "You should eat something." "I'm not hungry." "You should eat anyway." "I said I'm not hungry." Sabrina didn't argue. She just walked to the kitchen and came back 5 minutes later with a sandwich and a glass of whiskey. "Eat what you can. Drink the rest." Evan took the glass because it was easier than arguing. The whiskey burned going down, sharp and real. "I'm sorry," Sabrina said, sitting across from him in the living room that was bigger than his old apartment. "About your father." "Yeah, me too." "Were you close?" "Close enough. He did his best after my mom died. Wasn't always great at it, but he showed up. That counted for something." "When did your mother..." "I was 15. Cancer." Evan took another drink. "Same thing that got my dad. Different kind, but same ending." Sabrina was quiet for a moment. "My father's still alive. Lives in Greenwich with his 4th wife. We haven't spoken in 3 years." Evan looked at her, surprised by the admission. "What happened?" "He didn't approve of my company. Thought I should have married well and supported some man's career instead of building my own. When I filed for divorce from James, he sided with him, said I was throwing away a good marriage for my ego." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "So I stopped calling." "That's rough." "It is what it is." Sabrina stood. "You should get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be difficult." But Evan didn't want to be alone. Didn't want to go upstairs to that too-big bedroom and lie awake thinking about his father dying in a hospital bed while he played pretend in a mansion. "Can you just..." He stopped, not sure what he was asking for. "Can you stay for a minute?" Sabrina hesitated, then sat back down. They sat in silence, not touching, not talking, just existing in the same space. It shouldn't have helped, but somehow it did. The funeral was on Tuesday. Sabrina insisted on coming, and Evan was too tired to argue. She wore a simple black dress and stood beside him at the graveside, her hand resting lightly on his arm, in a gesture that looked natural enough that people probably thought it was real. Maya held his other hand, her small fingers tight in his. She'd cried herself to sleep the night he told her Grandpa was gone, and now she was trying very hard to be brave in a way that broke Evan's heart. There weren't many people there. His father had outlived most of his friends, and the rest of the family had drifted away over the years. A few guys from the old construction crew showed up, awkward in their suits, offering condolences that Evan accepted numbly. After the service, people came back to the house. Sabrina's house, though Evan was starting to think of it as their house in a weird way. Maria had arranged food, and people stood around making uncomfortable small talk the way people do at funerals. One of his father's old friends, Tommy, cornered Evan in the kitchen. "Your dad told me you got married. Quick, wasn't it?" "Yeah, when you know, you know." The lie came easier than Evan expected. "She seems nice. Fancy, but nice. Your dad said she's some kind of CEO." "Something like that." Tommy clapped him on the shoulder. He was proud of you, you know. Told everyone his son was doing real well. Married up, he said. Evan's throat went tight. His father had been proud of a lie. Had died believing Evan had found someone real. Someone who'd chosen him. After Tommy moved on, Evan found himself standing alone by the window, watching Maya and Sophie play quietly in the yard under Maria's supervision. The girls had been inseparable since his father died, Sophie's shyness melting away in the face of Maya's grief. Sabrina appeared beside him, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. She handed him one. "You're getting me drunk at my father's funeral?" "I'm getting you through your father's funeral. There's a difference." Evan took the glass. "Thank you. For today. For coming. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. We're married, remember? This is what married people do." "Still, I appreciate it." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the girls through the window. "Sophie asked if we could adopt Maya," Sabrina said quietly. Evan looked at her, surprised. "What?" "This morning, she asked if Maya could be her real sister now. I didn't know what to tell her." "What did you say?" "That families come in all different shapes. That sometimes people choose to be family even if they're not related by blood." Sabrina took a sip of her drink. She seemed satisfied with that. Evan felt something shift in his chest. "She's a good kid, your daughter." "So is yours." Sabrina glanced at him. "They're getting close. That's good, right? For the custody hearing?" "Right. For the hearing." But Evan was thinking about what would happen after the hearing, after the year was up when they split everything apart and went their separate ways. The girls would lose each other, just when they'd found each other. He pushed the thought away. That was a problem for future Evan. Right now he just had to get through today. The days after the funeral blurred together. Evan went through the motions, school runs, homework help, dinner preparation. But everything felt muted and far away. Sabrina didn't push him to talk about it. She just made sure he ate, reminded him to sleep, and took over more of the parenting duties without making a big deal about it. A week after the funeral, Evan was sitting in the study late at night when Sabrina found him. He'd been going through his father's things, the few boxes the hospital had released, and had gotten stuck looking at an old photo album. "Can't sleep?" she asked from the doorway. Something like that. She came in and sat in the chair across from him, tucking her legs under her. She was wearing pajamas. Actual pajamas, not some fancy silk thing, just cotton pants and an old t-shirt. It was the most casual he'd ever seen her. "What are you looking at?" Evan turned the album so she could see. "My parents' wedding. They look so young." In the photo, his mother wore a simple white dress, and his father wore a suit that was probably borrowed. They were standing outside a courthouse, grinning at each other like they'd just won the lottery. "They got married at City Hall," Evan said. "Couldn't afford a real wedding. My mom used to joke that they spent more on the marriage license than on the ceremony." "Did they regret it? The small wedding?" "No. They used to say it didn't matter where you got married, just who you married." Evan closed the album carefully. "Kind of ironic, considering where I am now." Sabrina was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret it? Agreeing to this?" Evan thought about the question honestly. "I don't know. My father died comfortable because I could afford his medication. Maya has a roof over her head and food on the table. So no, I don't regret those things. But this," he gestured around the study, meaning the house, the arrangement, all of it. "This isn't real, and sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in the lie." "I know what you mean." "Do you? Because you seem pretty comfortable with it." "I've had more practice." Sabrina leaned back. "You know what I think about every morning when I wake up? That today might be the day James finds proof that this marriage is fake. That today might be the day I lose Sophie because I was too desperate and too stubborn to see another way. He won't find proof. We're being careful. Are we? Because I'm pretty sure most real couples don't live like this. Separate wings of the house, barely speaking, treating each other like business associates. What do you want me to do? Pretend we're in love?" "Maybe. Yes. I don't know." Sabrina rubbed her face tiredly. "The hearing is in 3 weeks. My lawyer says we need to be more visible, more affectionate in public, more like an actual couple." "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning we need to act like we actually like each other. Can you do that?" Evan thought about the past 2 weeks. About Sabrina showing up at the hospital without being asked. About her sitting with him after the funeral. About the way she'd stepped up with the girls when he couldn't manage it. Yeah, he said. I think I can do that. Good, because there's a benefit this weekend. Something for children's literacy. We're expected to attend together. A benefit? Great. It's important, Evan. James will be there. This is our chance to show him that we're solid, that we're real. Then we'll show him. Evan stood, tucking the photo album under his arm. I'm going to bed. You should too. You look exhausted. Thanks. Very flattering. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept more than 5 hours? Sabrina didn't answer, which was answer enough. Go to bed, Sabrina. The company will survive without you for one night. She looked like she might argue, then just nodded. All right, good night, Evan. Good night. As Evan climbed the stairs to his room, he thought about what she'd said, about needing to act like they actually liked each other. The weird thing was, he realized, it wouldn't be that hard, because somewhere in the past few weeks, buried under the grief and the stress and the constant performance, he'd started to actually like her. Not love, not even close, but like? Yeah, he could work with that. But The benefit was held at the Plaza Hotel in a ballroom that probably cost more to rent for one night than Evan used to make in a year. He stood in a tux that Patricia had arranged, feeling like a fraud among all these people in their designer clothes and expensive jewelry. Sabrina looked stunning in a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than his old car. She'd done something different with her hair, still pulled back but softer somehow, and when she took his arm, he felt every eye in the room turn toward them. Smile, she murmured. You look like you're facing a firing squad. That's about how I feel. Just stay close to me and follow my lead. We're going to work the room, make some donations, and show everyone that we're the perfect couple. No pressure. They moved through the crowd, Sabrina introducing him to people whose names Evan immediately forgot. CEOs, board members, philanthropists, all of them looking at him with barely concealed curiosity. The guy who'd landed Sabrina Vale, the construction worker who'd married the billionaire. He could see the questions in their eyes. What's his angle? What's she thinking? How long will this last? About an hour in, Evan spotted James across the room. He looked exactly like the kind of guy who'd end up with someone like Sabrina. Tall, polished, expensive suit, the smile of someone who'd never had to struggle for anything. He was talking to a blonde woman who must have been the kindergarten teacher fiancée, all sweetness and perfect hair. That's him? Evan asked quietly. Sabrina's hand tightened on his arm. That's him. He's looking at you. I know, let him look. James started making his way toward them through the crowd, his fiancée in tow. Evan felt Sabrina's tension like a live wire. Sabrina, you look lovely. James's voice was smooth, practiced. And you must be the new husband. Evan Cole. Evan shook his hand, noting the way James squeezed just a little too hard. James Whitmore. I'd say it's nice to meet you, but that would be a lie. James smiled like he'd made a joke. This is my fiancée, Caroline. It's wonderful to meet you both, Caroline said with a smile that seemed genuine. We've heard so much about you, Evan. Have you? Evan kept his voice pleasant. All good things, I hope. James said you work construction? Caroline's tone was curious, not judgmental, which somehow made it worse. Worked. I'm taking some time off to focus on family right now. Oh, how lovely. It's so important for children to have a stable parent at home. Caroline looked at Sabrina. You must be so grateful to have someone who can handle the domestic side of things. I know how demanding your work is. The implication hung in the air, that Sabrina couldn't manage both, that she needed a man to pick up her slack, that she was failing as a mother. Before Sabrina could respond, Evan put his arm around her waist and pulled her closer. Actually, Sabrina's amazing. She runs a billion-dollar company and still makes it home for dinner most nights. Sophie's thriving. Both our girls are. Sophie's adjusting well to having a step-family? James's tone was sharp. That's surprising. She's usually so sensitive to change. She and Maya have become inseparable, Sabrina said coolly. It's been a very smooth transition. Really? Because when I pick her up for my custody days, she seems confused, upset. She misses you. That's natural. Or maybe she's struggling with all the upheaval. A new marriage, a new sister, a mother who's never around. Careful, James. Evan's voice dropped low enough that only their small group could hear. You're at a charity event. Probably not the place to air custody grievances. James's smile went razor sharp. Of course. You're absolutely right. We should save that for court. He looked at Sabrina. 3 weeks. See you there. He walked away with Caroline, leaving a wake of tension behind them. Sabrina was rigid beside Evan, her jaw tight. I need air. Come on. He guided her through the crowd and out onto a balcony that overlooked Central Park. The spring air was cool, almost cold, and Sabrina wrapped her arms around herself. That went well, she said bitterly. He's an asshole. You're better off without him. Am I? Because he's got a point. I'm never there. Sophie does get confused. Maybe she would be better off with... Stop. Evan turned her to face him. Stop letting him get in your head. You're a good mother, not perfect, but who is? You love Sophie. You show up for her. That's what matters. I married a stranger to keep her. What kind of mother does that? The kind who's desperate and scared and willing to do whatever it takes. That's not weakness, Sabrina. That's love. She looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. How do you always know what to say? I don't. I'm making it up as I go. Sabrina laughed, wet and shaky, and then she was crying, actually crying, tears running down her face while her careful makeup smeared. Evan pulled her into his arms without thinking, and she pressed her face into his shoulder and just let go. He held her while she cried, one hand rubbing circles on her back, the other cradling her head. Around them the city hummed and glittered, but in that moment it was just the two of them and the weight of everything they were carrying. I'm ruining your tux, Sabrina mumbled into his shoulder. I don't care. Patricia's going to kill me. This dress was custom. Then Patricia can bill me. Sabrina pulled back just enough to look at him, her mascara smudged and her lipstick gone, and somehow more beautiful than she'd been all night. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you need someone to be. And apparently, I'm your husband. Might as well act like it. Something shifted in her expression, surprise maybe, or something deeper that Evan couldn't name. They stood there on the balcony, close enough that he could feel her breathing, close enough that it would be easy to... We should get back, Sabrina said, stepping away. People will notice we're gone. Right, yeah. She used his handkerchief to fix her makeup as best she could, then straightened her dress and lifted her chin. The vulnerable woman from a moment ago disappeared, replaced by the CEO in armor. How do I look? Like you could buy and sell everyone in that room. Good, let's go remind them of that. They went back inside, and Evan watched as Sabrina worked the room with renewed energy, charming donors and making connections like the past 10 minutes hadn't happened. But every now and then, she'd glance at him across the room, and he'd see it, the crack in the armor, the woman underneath who was just barely holding it together. He'd see her. And somehow, that felt more dangerous than anything else about this arrangement. Later that night, after they'd gotten home and checked on the girls and retreated to their separate wings of the house, Evan lay awake thinking about the way Sabrina had felt in his arms, about the way holding her had felt right in a way that scared him. This was supposed to be business, a transaction. 1 year, $200,000, and then they'd go their separate ways. But somewhere along the way, it had stopped feeling like business. Somewhere between his father's death and that moment on the balcony, something had shifted, and Evan had no idea what to do about it. The morning after the benefit, Evan woke to sunlight streaming through windows he still wasn't used to, and the sound of voices downstairs. He checked his phone, 8:30, which meant he'd overslept by his usual standards. The girls would be wondering where he was. He pulled on jeans and a t-shirt and headed downstairs, following the sound of laughter to the kitchen. What he found stopped him in the doorway. Sabrina was making pancakes, actually making them, standing at the stove with flour on her cheek and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing yoga pants and an old Stanford sweatshirt. Maya and Sophie sat at the counter, giggling at something she'd just said. You have to flip it fast, Maya was explaining with the authority of a 6-year-old expert. Otherwise it gets stuck. Like this? Sabrina attempted a flip. The pancake folded in half and landed sideways on the griddle. Sophie dissolved into giggles. Mama, that's not right. I'm aware of that, thank you. But Sabrina was smiling, actually smiling, not the careful professional version, but something real and unguarded. Evan cleared his throat. Am I interrupting? All three of them turned. Sabrina's smile faltered slightly, replaced by something more cautious. You're awake. I thought I'd let you sleep in. I can see that. Since when do you make pancakes? Since this morning. It's not going well. She looked down at the misshapen disaster on the griddle. But the girls are being very patient with my learning curve. Daddy makes better pancakes, Maya announced, then seemed to realize how that sounded. But yours are good too, Ms. Sabrina. It's fine, your dad does make better pancakes. I've seen him in action. Sabrina scraped the failed attempt onto a plate. I was trying to surprise everyone with breakfast. Clearly, I should have stuck with my strengths. Which are? Mergers and acquisitions, hostile takeovers, things that don't require spatial reasoning or timing. Evan crossed to the stove and examined her setup. You're using too much batter and the heat's too high. Here. He adjusted the burner, then took the ladle from her. Watch. He poured a smaller amount onto the griddle, waited for the bubbles to form, then flipped it smoothly. Perfect golden brown. Show off, Sabrina muttered, but there was no heat in it. Years of practice. Maya used to eat pancakes for every meal if I let her. I still would, Maya said. They ended up making breakfast together, Evan coaching Sabrina through the process while the girls offered commentary. It was strange and domestic and felt more real than anything they'd done so far. When they finally sat down to eat, at the kitchen table, not the formal dining room, it almost felt like they were actually a family. So what's everyone doing today? Sabrina asked, cutting Sophie's pancakes into smaller pieces. Can we go to the park? Maya asked through a mouthful of food. Don't talk with your mouth full, Evan said automatically. Sorry, but can we? Please? Sabrina looked at Evan, something uncertain in her expression. I don't have any meetings until this afternoon. We could all go. You want to go to the park? Evan didn't bother hiding his surprise. Why not? Normal families go to the park on Saturday mornings, don't they? Yeah, they do. Then we should too. She said it like she was making a business decision, but there was something else underneath. A genuine desire to try, maybe, to be the kind of mother who did things like go to the park. An hour later, they were at the Westchester Nature Preserve, watching the girls run ahead on the trail while they followed at a more sedate pace. Sabrina had changed into jeans and sneakers, and with her hair down and sunglasses on, she looked younger, less intimidating, almost approachable. They're good together, Evan said, watching Maya point out something in the trees to Sophie, who listened with rapt attention. They really are. Sophie's come out of her shell so much in the past few weeks. She used to be so withdrawn around new people. Maya has that effect. She could make friends with a brick wall. She gets that from you. Evan glanced at her, surprised. What makes you say that? You're easy to talk to. Even when I don't want to be talking, you make it, I don't know, less difficult. Sabrina watched the girls for a moment. I'm not good at this. The casual conversation thing, the getting to know you thing. James used to say I treated relationships like business negotiations. Did he have a point? Probably. I spent so much time building the company that I forgot how to be a person outside of it. By the time Sophie was born, I'd already turned into this corporate robot. I look at other mothers at her school, the ones who volunteer and host play dates and remember everyone's names, and I just feel like I'm from a different species. You're being too hard on yourself. Am I? Because I didn't know how to make pancakes this morning. My daughter is 5 years old and I've never made her pancakes. What kind of mother doesn't know how to make pancakes? The kind who's been busy building a billion-dollar company and employing 3,000 people. You can't be good at everything, Sabrina. But I should be good at this. Being a mother should come naturally. Instead, I have to study it like it's a hostile takeover strategy. Evan was quiet for a moment, watching the girls chase each other down the path. You know what Maya asked me last night? What? She asked if Sophie's mom liked her. She was worried that you were just being nice because you had to be, not because you actually cared. Sabrina stopped walking. She thinks that? Kids pick up on stuff. They know when adults are going through the motions. Evan met her eyes. But this morning, when you were making those terrible pancakes and laughing with them, that wasn't going through the motions. That was real. And that's what they need. Not perfection. Just you showing up and trying. Even when I fail spectacularly at basic cooking, especially then. Because it shows you're human, that you don't have all the answers. He started walking again. Maya's mom was great at a lot of things, but she couldn't keep a plant alive to save her life. Had a black thumb that killed everything she touched. Maya used to think it was hilarious. She still talks about it sometimes, how Mommy killed the cactus. How do you kill a cactus? No idea, but Rachel managed it. Evan smiled at the memory. The point is, Maya didn't love her less because she was bad at gardening. She just loved her, flaws and all. Sabrina was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. Thank you. For what? For not making me feel like a complete failure at this. You're not a failure. You're just figuring it out. We all are. They caught up with the girls at a clearing where other families had spread out on blankets for picnics. Maya and Sophie were watching a group of kids play frisbee, clearly wanting to join in. Can we play? Maya asked. We don't have a frisbee, Evan said. I might have one in the car, Sabrina said. Emergency kit. You have an emergency frisbee? Patricia insists on being prepared for any eventuality, including spontaneous frisbee needs. 10 minutes later, they were playing in the clearing, Evan and Sabrina taking turns tossing the frisbee to the girls. Sabrina was terrible at it, her throws going wild more often than not, but she kept trying. And when Sophie finally caught one after a dozen attempts, the look of pure joy on Sabrina's face was worth all the awkward throws. I caught it, Mama. Did you see? I saw. That was perfect, sweetheart. Maya ran over to high-five Sophie, and the two girls collapsed into giggles. Watching them, Evan felt something shift in his chest. This arrangement wasn't supposed to feel like this. Wasn't supposed to look like a real family having a real day in the park. But it did. And that scared him more than anything. Later, on the drive home, both girls fell asleep in the back seat. Sabrina drove while Evan sat in the passenger seat, watching the suburbs roll past. That was nice, Sabrina said quietly. Today. Thank you for suggesting we all go. I didn't suggest it. You did. Right, I did. She sounded surprised by that. I should do it more often, the family thing? Yeah, you should. The hearing is in 2 weeks. The abrupt change of subject caught Evan off guard. I know. My lawyer called yesterday. James's team is digging. They've interviewed neighbors, Sophie's teachers, people from my company. They're looking for any crack they can exploit. Have they found anything? Not yet, but they're persistent. Sabrina's hands tightened on the steering wheel. If they prove this marriage is fake, I lose everything, not just the custody case, the company, my reputation, everything I've built. James would make sure of it. They won't prove anything. We're careful. Are we? Because sometimes I forget we're pretending, like this morning, making pancakes, or just now at the park. It felt real. Maybe that's good. Maybe if it feels real to us, it'll look real to everyone else. Or maybe we're losing sight of what this actually is. A business arrangement with an expiration date. Evan looked at her profile, at the tension in her jaw, at the way she kept her eyes fixed firmly on the road ahead. Is that what you want? To keep remembering it's not real? I think it's safer that way. Don't you? He didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know anymore. Didn't know what was safer, keeping the walls up or letting them down. Didn't know which would hurt more in the end. When they got home, they carried the sleeping girls inside and put them down for naps. Evan was heading to his room when Sabrina called his name from her doorway. Can we talk for a minute? He followed her into her room, the first time he'd been inside it. It was bigger than his, decorated in creams and soft grays, with a sitting area by the window and a desk covered in files and laptop. Personal, but not overly so. Like everything else about Sabrina, it was carefully controlled. What's up? Evan asked. I need you to understand something. Sabrina crossed her arms, defensive. When this is over, when the year is up and we file for divorce, the girls are going to be hurt. Maya and Sophie. They're going to lose each other, and that's going to be painful. I know that. Do you? Because sometimes I watch you with them, the way you are with both of them, and I think you're forgetting this ends. That we're building something that's going to get torn down. What do you want me to do? Pull back? Stop caring about Sophie? No. Maybe. I don't know. Sabrina sat on the edge of her bed, suddenly looking exhausted. I'm trying to protect her from getting too attached, from being hurt when this falls apart, but I don't know how to do that without being cold to you, and I can't do that anymore. What changed? You showed up at the hospital when my father died. You held me while I cried at that benefit. You're teaching me how to make pancakes and taking my daughter to the park like she's yours too. How am I supposed to keep walls up when you keep knocking them down? Evan sat in the chair across from her. Maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe the walls are the problem. The walls keep me safe. Or they keep you alone. There's a difference. Sabrina looked at him for a long moment. What are we doing, Evan? Really? I don't know, but I think we stopped pretending somewhere along the way. Or at least I did. That's dangerous. Yeah, it is. The contract says, I know what the contract says, but contracts don't account for... He stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. For what? Feelings? Connection? The way his heart kicked up whenever she smiled at the girls? For what? Sabrina asked quietly. For things getting complicated. For two people who were supposed to stay strangers accidentally becoming something else. Friends? Maybe, yeah. Friends. But even as he said it, Evan knew it wasn't quite right. Friends didn't make his pulse race. Friends didn't keep him up at night wondering what would happen when the year ended and they had to walk away from each other. Sabrina seemed to be thinking the same thing. We should probably establish some boundaries for after. Make sure the girls... Let's just get through the hearing first, Evan said. One crisis at a time. That's not really a long-term strategy. I know, but it's all I've got right now. Sabrina nodded slowly. Okay. One crisis at a time. Evan stood to leave, but paused at the door. For what it's worth. I'm glad we're friends. Or whatever we are. Makes this whole thing less transactional? Yeah, less like a business deal, more like a life? Something like that. After he left, Evan stood in the hallway for a long moment, his heart pounding against his ribs like it was trying to tell him something he wasn't ready to hear. This was getting messy, complicated, exactly what he'd been trying to avoid, but it was also starting to feel like the most real thing he'd done in years. And that terrified him more than any custody hearing or fake marriage ever could. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Sabrina's lawyer, a sharp woman named Diana Cross, came to the house 3 times to prep them for the hearing. She asked questions designed to trip them up, poked holes in their story, pushed them to see how they'd hold up under pressure. How did you meet? Diana asked during one session. Through a mutual friend, Sabrina said smoothly. They'd rehearsed this. Someone who thought we'd get along. Friend's name? Patricia Vance. She works for me. So an employee set you up with your boss. That's going to raise eyebrows. Patricia's known me for 15 years. She's more friend than employee at this point. Diana turned to Evan. What attracted you to Sabrina? Her strength, Evan said. The way she handles everything thrown at her and doesn't break. The way she loves Sophie even when she thinks she's not doing it right. Diana raised an eyebrow. That's specific. You asked what attracted me. That's it. And you, Sabrina? What attracted you to Evan? Sabrina hesitated for just a second. His steadiness. The way he shows up for people. The way he makes everything seem manageable, even when it's falling apart. Diana made notes. Good. That sounds genuine. Now, let's talk about the wedding. Why so fast? When you know, Evan said. That's a cliche, not an answer. James's lawyers are going to push on the timeline. 3 weeks from meeting to marriage is suspicious. We were practical about it, Sabrina said. Both of us have children. Both of us understood what we were signing up for. We didn't see the point in a long engagement. What about romance, courtship? James is going to argue you rushed into this to look good for the custody hearing. Let him argue that. The timeline is what it is. Sabrina's voice went cool. Besides, James and I got engaged after 6 weeks. If anyone understands whirlwind romances, it's him. Diana smiled. Good. Use that. Now, intimacy. How are you going to handle questions about your physical relationship? We're not going to handle them, Evan said. That's private. Nothing's private in family court. They'll ask if you share a bedroom, if you're intimate, if this marriage is consummated. Evan felt heat creep up his neck. Then we'll say it's none of their business. That makes you look defensive, like you're hiding something. Diana looked between them. Look, I'm not asking you to lie about anything you're not comfortable lying about, but you need to be prepared for these questions, and you need to have answers that don't make the judge suspicious. After Diana left, Evan and Sabrina sat in the study, both of them wound tight with tension. This is insane, Evan said. They're going to ask about our sex life in court? If they think it'll help their case, yes. James knows we got married fast. He's going to push the idea that it's fake. So what do we say? Sabrina rubbed her temples. The truth, that we're private people who don't discuss our intimate life with strangers, and that what happens in our marriage is between us. Will that be enough? It'll have to be, because we're not changing our sleeping arrangements just to make this more convincing. No, we're not. Evan paused. Unless you think we should. What? No, that's not. We agreed. Separate rooms. That was the deal. I know. I'm just saying, if it helps your case, I'm not asking you to share a bed with me for appearances, Evan. That's crossing a line. Then what are we going to do when they ask if we share a room and the answer is no? Sabrina didn't have an answer for that. They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment before she spoke again. We'll figure it out. We've made it this far. Yeah, we have. But Evan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking towards something that was going to blow up in their faces. That no matter how carefully they'd constructed this lie, the truth was going to come out in the worst possible way. The night before the hearing, Evan couldn't sleep. He lay in his too-big bed, staring at the ceiling and running through everything that could go wrong. What if they slipped up? What if the judge saw through them? What if Sabrina lost Sophie because of him, because he wasn't convincing enough? Around midnight, he gave up on sleep and went downstairs to the kitchen. He was surprised to find Sabrina already there, sitting at the table with a glass of wine and a file folder. Can't sleep either? He asked. I keep going over Diana's notes, looking for holes they might exploit. You're going to drive yourself crazy. Probably, but it beats lying awake imagining worst-case scenarios. Evan poured himself a whiskey and sat across from her. We're going to be fine. We've practiced. We know our story. What if it's not enough? Then we'll deal with it. But Sabrina, you're a good mother. The judge is going to see that. I hope you're right. She took a sip of wine. I keep thinking about what happens if we lose. If James gets full custody and I only see Sophie every other weekend. If she grows up thinking I chose work over her. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. No. But I can promise I'll be standing next to you tomorrow, telling the truth about what I've seen. And what I've seen is a woman who loves her daughter enough to do something desperate and crazy to keep her. That counts for something. Sabrina looked at him across the table, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Why are you so good to me? Because someone needs to be, and because... He stopped, not sure how to finish. Because what? Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being just about the money, about the arrangement. I started caring what happens to you, to Sophie, to all of us. Evan, I'm not asking for anything to change. I know the deal. 1 year, then we're done. But I need you to know that when I stand up in that courtroom tomorrow and tell them we're married, I'm not going to be lying, not completely. Because whatever this is between us, fake or real or something in between, it matters to me. You matter to me. Sabrina was very still. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because it makes everything harder. Because in 9 months, we're supposed to walk away from each other, and the more real this gets, the harder it'll be. I know, but pretending it's still just business, that's the lie, Sabrina, not the marriage. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Sabrina stood. I should try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be Yeah, it is. She paused at the doorway. Evan? Yeah? Thank you for everything. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Neither is any of this. But here we are. Here we are, she echoed, and then she was gone. Evan sat alone in the dark kitchen, nursing his whiskey and thinking about how completely his life had changed in just a few weeks. How he'd gone from drowning in debt and desperation to sitting in a mansion, married to a billionaire, caring about her daughter like she was his own. How he'd gone from pretending to feel something to actually feeling it and not knowing what the hell to do about it. Tomorrow they'd go to court. Tomorrow they'd put on the performance of their lives. Tomorrow everything would either fall into place or fall apart completely. But tonight, in this quiet moment, Evan let himself admit the truth he'd been avoiding for weeks. He was falling for Sabrina Vale, falling for her determination and her vulnerability, for the way she tried so hard at things that didn't come naturally. for the fierce love she had for her daughter, even when she didn't know how to show it properly. He was falling for her, and there was absolutely nothing he could do about it except hope that when this was all over, they'd both walk away intact. The morning of the hearing, the house was tense and quiet. Sabrina wore a navy suit that was professional but not intimidating, her hair pulled back simply, minimal jewelry. She looked like exactly what she was trying to project, a stable, responsible mother. Evan wore the suit Patricia had picked out, charcoal gray, conservative tie, everything designed to make him look trustworthy and steady. He felt like he was wearing a costume. The girls had been dropped at Rachel's place, Sabrina's nanny, for the day. Sophie had clung to her mother at the door, sensing something was wrong. "It's just boring grown-up stuff, sweetheart," Sabrina had said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. "I'll be home by dinner. I promise." "You promise?" "I promise." In the car on the way to the courthouse, neither of them spoke. Evan could see Sabrina's hands trembling slightly as she gripped her phone, and he reached over to take one of them. She startled, then relaxed, her fingers curling around his. "We've got this," he said. "I know, I can't lose her, Evan. I can't." "You won't. We won't let that happen." The courthouse was a hulking stone building downtown, all authority and intimidation. Diana met them in the lobby, her expression professionally neutral. "Ready?" "As we'll ever be," Sabrina said. "Remember, let me do the talking unless you're directly asked a question. Stay calm. Don't let James or his lawyers rattle you. And whatever you do, don't lie. If you don't know something or don't remember, say so. Lying will destroy your credibility." They rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. Evan could feel Sabrina's tension radiating off her in waves, could see the way she was locking down all her emotions behind that professional mask she wore so well. James was already there with his legal team, looking confident and relaxed. Caroline sat beside him, her hand on his arm, picture-perfect, supportive fiancé. When James saw them, his expression shifted to something cold and calculating. "Sabrina, Evan, ready to explain to the judge why you got married 3 weeks after meeting? Ready to explain to the judge why you think a mother's work ethic makes her unfit?" Sabrina shot back. "Children," Diana said mildly. "Save it for the courtroom." The hearing itself was held in a smaller room than Evan expected, more like a conference room than a traditional courtroom. Judge Marion Hendricks presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. James's lawyer, a man named Robert Crane, who looked like he billed $1,000 an hour, went first. He painted a picture of Sabrina as an absent workaholic who'd rushed into a suspicious marriage to bolster her custody case, a woman who prioritized her company over her daughter's emotional needs. "Ms. Vale works 12-hour days, Your Honor. She's frequently traveling for business. Sophie is raised primarily by nannies and staff, and when Ms. Vale faces the possibility of losing custody, she suddenly produces a husband she met mere weeks earlier. The timing is remarkably convenient." Diana countered with testimonies from Sophie's teachers, her pediatrician, character witnesses who testified to Sabrina's devotion as a mother. She presented evidence of Sophie's stability, her happiness, her academic and social development. Ms. Vale has built a successful company, yes, but she has also built a loving home for her daughter. She attends every parent-teacher conference, every ballet recital, every doctor's appointment. She makes time for what matters, and her marriage to Mr. Cole, while quick, is genuine. Sometimes people meet and simply know. That's not suspicious, that's life. Then it was time for testimony. James went first, smooth and sympathetic, talking about how much he loved Sophie and how worried he was about her living situation. "She comes to my place confused, Your Honor. She talks about this new man and his daughter, people she didn't know existed a month ago. She asks why Mommy married someone she never mentioned. A 5-year-old shouldn't have to deal with that kind of upheaval." When it was Sabrina's turn, she walked to the stand with her spine straight and her head high. Crane went after her immediately. "Ms. Vale, when did you meet Mr. Cole?" 2 months ago. "And you married him 3 weeks later?" "Yes." "That's quite fast, isn't it?" "Some people take years to make a decision and still get it wrong. We were confident in ours." "Were you concerned about how this would affect Sophie?" "Of course I was. That's why we took our time introducing the families. We made sure the girls got along before we moved forward." "But you did move forward very quickly. almost as if you had a deadline to meet. I moved forward because I found someone I wanted to build a life with. There was no deadline except the one we set for ourselves. Crane pulled out some paper. Do they? Or are we just confusing proximity and stress for something else? Sabrina crossed her arms, defensive. We've been living in the same house, playing happy family, going through intense situations together. It's natural to develop some attachment, but that doesn't mean don't do that. Don't minimize what's happening between us. What is happening between us? Because from where I'm standing, we're two people who made a business deal, and now it's getting messy because we forgot to keep our distance. Is that really what you think this is? Sabrina looked away. I don't know what I think. I know that in 8 months we're supposed to file for divorce and go our separate ways. I know that getting emotionally involved makes that exponentially harder. And I know that I can't do this. I can't let myself feel something for you when there's an expiration date stamped on whatever this is. What if there wasn't? What? An expiration date. What if we didn't have to end this in 8 months? Sabrina stared at him. Are you seriously suggesting we stay married? For real? I'm suggesting we stop pretending this is still just an arrangement, that we acknowledge what's actually happening here and figure out what we want to do about it. What I want is to not complicate things further. What I want is to get through the next 8 months without anyone getting hurt. Her voice rose slightly. We have children, Evan. 2 little girls who are already attached to each other. If we blur these lines even more and then it falls apart, why are you so sure it'll fall apart? Because everything falls apart eventually. My parents' marriage fell apart. My marriage to James fell apart. I fall apart at basic things like making pancakes. Why would this be any different? Because we're different. Because we're building something real here, whether you want to admit it or not. We're building a lie, Evan. A very convincing lie, but a lie nonetheless. The house, the marriage, the happy family, it's all constructed. It's not real. Sophie sleeping on your lap in the car because she was so relieved you're still her mother, that was real. Maya asking you to help her with homework because she trusts you, that's real. You and me on that balcony, you crying because you were terrified of losing your daughter and me holding you because I couldn't stand to see you hurting, that was real. Sabrina's eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. Stop. Why? Because it's easier to pretend we're still strangers? Because admitting you feel something for me makes you vulnerable? Yes, exactly that. She turned away from him, her shoulders rigid. You want to know why I built walls? Why I'm so good at keeping people at arm's length? Because letting people in means giving them the power to hurt you. And I've been hurt enough. I failed enough. I won't let myself fail at this too. Evan wanted to go to her, to turn her around and make her see that this wasn't failing, that what they had was messy and complicated, but worth fighting for. But he could see how close she was to breaking, how hard she was working to hold herself together. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, we'll keep things the way they are. Separate rooms, business arrangement, whatever you need. Sabrina's shoulders sagged with relief. Or maybe disappointment. Evan couldn't tell. Thank you. But Sabrina, you're not failing at this. You're scared. There's a difference. She didn't respond, just walked out of the kitchen, leaving Evan alone with the taste of her still on his lips, and the certainty that he'd just let something important slip through his fingers. The next few days were awkward, in a way they hadn't been before. Sabrina threw herself into work with renewed intensity, leaving early and coming home late, present at dinner, but distant in a way that made even the girls notice. Is Ms. Sabrina mad at us? Maya asked one night while Evan was tucking her in. No, baby, she's not mad. She's just busy with work. She seems sad. Kids picked up on everything. Evan smoothed Maya's hair back from her face. She's dealing with some grown-up stuff, but she loves you and Sophie very much. That hasn't changed. Do you love her? The question caught Evan completely off guard. What? Miss Sabrina. Do you love her? Like how you loved Mommy? Evan sat on the edge of Maya's bed, not sure how to answer. He'd been so careful not to lie to his daughter about the big things, but how did you explain this? How did you tell a 6-year-old that you'd married someone for money, but then accidentally fell for them anyway? It's complicated, sweetheart. Adults always say that, but love isn't complicated. You either love someone or you don't. When you're older, you'll understand that sometimes love is very complicated. Sometimes you can feel something for someone, but not know what to do about it. Maya considered this seriously. I think you love her. You look at her the way Daddy looked at Mommy in the pictures, like she's the most important person in the room. Evan's throat went tight. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't notice because I'm little. Maya yawned, then snuggled into her pillow. You should tell her, Miss Sabrina, that you love her. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she doesn't want to know. That's silly. Everyone wants to know someone loves them. Evan kissed her forehead. Good night, baby. Sweet dreams. Night, Daddy. Don't forget to tell her. After Maya fell asleep, Evan stood in her doorway for a long moment, thinking about what she'd said. Out of the mouths of babes. His 6-year-old had just called him out for being a coward. He found Sabrina in her study, laptop open, files scattered across her desk. She looked up when he knocked on the doorframe. Hey, the girls are asleep. Thanks for putting them down. I should have helped, but this presentation... It's fine. Can we talk? Sabrina's expression shuddered. If this is about the other day, it's not, or it is, but not the way you think. Evan came in and sat in the chair across from her desk. I'm not going to push you into anything you're not ready for, but I need you to know something. Evan, just let me say this, please. He waited until she nodded. You asked what's happening between us, and you're right that things have gotten complicated, but it's not because of proximity or stress or some kind of confusion, at least not for me. I know exactly what I'm feeling, and I know it's inconvenient and not part of the plan, and probably the stupidest thing I could do given our situation. But I'm falling for you, Sabrina. Maybe I've already fallen, and I need you to know that before we spend the next 8 months pretending otherwise. Sabrina's face had gone very pale. You don't mean that? I do. I'm not asking you to feel the same way. I'm not asking you to do anything about it. I just need you to know that when I'm with you, when I watch you with the girls, when you let your guard down for 5 seconds and let me see who you really are, that's when I feel it. That's when I know this stopped being pretend somewhere along the way. This is a terrible idea. Probably the worst I've ever had. We have a contract, an arrangement. I know. In 8 months, we're supposed to walk away from each other. I know that too. Sabrina stood abruptly, pacing to the window. So what are you suggesting? That we just, what? Start dating while we're already married, while we're living together and raising our daughters as sisters? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just telling you the truth. What you do with it is up to you. She was quiet for a long time, her back to him, her reflection in the dark window unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I can't give you what you want. I don't know how to be the person you need me to be. I'm not asking you to be anyone except who you are. That's enough. It's not, though. You want someone who can be soft and open and vulnerable. Someone who knows how to love properly. I'm not that person. I'm broken in ways you haven't even seen yet. Everyone's broken, Sabrina. That's not unique to you. But I'm broken in ways that hurt people. James figured that out. He realized I couldn't give him what he needed, couldn't be the wife he wanted, couldn't prioritize him over my work. What makes you think this would be any different? Because I'm not James. Because I don't need you to be someone you're not. Because the things you think are flaws, your drive, your dedication, your inability to bullshit people, those are the things He stopped himself before finishing that sentence. Those are the things I admire about you. Sabrina turned to face him finally, her eyes bright with tears. You were going to say love. You were going to say those are the things you love about me. Yeah, I was. Don't. Please don't love me. I'll just disappoint you. I disappoint everyone eventually. Let me be the judge of that. Evan, I'm serious. I can't do this. I can't let you love me and then watch it turn into resentment when you realize I'm never going to be enough. I've been through that once already. I can't go through it again. Evan stood, crossed to where she was standing, and took her hands in his. Listen to me. You are enough, exactly as you are. Terrible pancakes and workaholism and emotional walls and all. You're enough for Sophie. You're enough for me. The only person who doesn't think you're enough is you. A tear slipped down Sabrina's cheek. I'm scared. I know, me too. What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if we make things worse? Or what if we try it and it does work? What if we're better together than we are apart? That's a lot of what ifs. Life's full of them. You can either let fear make all your decisions, or you can take a chance on something that might be worth the risk. Sabrina looked up at him, and for the first time since the courthouse, her walls were completely down. He could see everything: the fear, the longing, the desperate hope that maybe this could actually work. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to let someone in." "Then let me help you figure it out. We'll take it slow. No pressure, just let's stop pretending we don't feel this. Let's see where it goes. And if it goes nowhere, if we crash and burn, then at least we'll know we tried. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering what if." Sabrina closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, then nodded. "Okay. Okay, we'll try. But Evan, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if this doesn't work, if I'm too broken or too closed off or too much of a disaster, you won't let it hurt the girls. Maya and Sophie, they need to stay close regardless of what happens with us. I promise. No matter what happens between us, we protect them first. They're the priority. Okay?" She opened her eyes, and there was something vulnerable and terrified in her expression. "So what now?" "Now, we take it one day at a time. No grand gestures, no dramatic changes, just we stop lying to each other about how we feel. We see where that takes us. I'm really bad at this. The relationship thing, the emotional availability thing. You're going to get frustrated with me. Probably. And you're going to get frustrated with me too. I'm not exactly a prize, Sabrina. I come with baggage and debt and a daughter who's still grieving her mother. This isn't going to be easy. Nothing worth having ever is." She took a shaky breath. Can we start with something small? Something that doesn't feel so overwhelming? Like what? Like maybe we have dinner together tomorrow. A real dinner, not just the four of us doing the family routine, but after the girls go to bed, just us, talking. A date? Don't call it that. It makes it sound more significant than it is. Sabrina, we're married. We live together. We're raising our kids together. I think we're past the point where a dinner date is insignificant. Fine. A date, whatever, but just dinner, nothing else. I need to take this slow. Slow is good. I can do slow. They stood there for a moment, hands still linked, both of them terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Then Sabrina squeezed his fingers and stepped back. I should finish this presentation. It's due tomorrow morning. Right. Yeah, I'll let you work. Evan was halfway to the door when Sabrina called his name. He turned back to find her watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Thank you for being patient with me, for not giving up even when I'm being impossible. You're not impossible, you're just careful. There's a difference. After he left, Evan went to his room and sat on the edge of his bed, his heart racing like he'd just run a marathon. They were doing this. Actually doing this. Trying to turn their fake marriage into something real. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely insane. But for the first time since this whole arrangement started, Evan felt like they were finally being honest with each other. Finally admitting what had been building between them all along. His phone buzzed, a text from Sabrina. Thank you for seeing me, the real me. Not many people do. Evan typed back, I see you, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere. Her response came a minute later. I'm starting to believe that might actually be true. It wasn't a declaration of love, it wasn't even a declaration of serious feelings, but it was a start, and right now that was enough. The next evening, after the girls were in bed, Evan and Sabrina had their date, or dinner, or whatever they were calling it. Maria had left before Sabrina got home, so Evan cooked while Sabrina changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater that made her look younger and less guarded. I'm making chicken piccata, Evan said when she came into the kitchen. Nothing fancy, but it's one of the few things I can make that doesn't involve pasta or sandwiches. It smells amazing. Can I help? You can open the wine. Glasses are in that cabinet. They moved around the kitchen together, falling into an easy rhythm that surprised them both. Sabrina set the table while Evan plated the food, and when they finally sat down, it felt both completely natural and utterly surreal. This is weird, right? Sabrina said, taking a sip of wine. We've had dinner together dozens of times, but this feels different because we're not pretending anymore. Or we're pretending less. I'm not sure which. Both, maybe. She tried the chicken and her eyes widened. This is really good. Where did you learn to cook like this? YouTube, mostly. After Rachel died, I had a lot of nights where Maya was asleep and I couldn't sleep, so I'd watch cooking videos. Figured I might as well learn something useful. I should do that. Learn to cook, I mean. Sophie deserves a mother who can make her more than scrambled eggs and toast. Sophie deserves a mother who shows up for her. Everything else is just details. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Sabrina spoke again. Can I ask you something? Anything. What was Rachel like? You talk about her sometimes, but I don't really know who she was. Evan set down his fork, surprised by the question. She was the kind of person who made friends everywhere she went. Extroverted where I'm introverted. Always optimistic, even when things were hard. She saw the best in people, sometimes to a fault. Did you love her? Yeah, I did. Not in some fairy tale way. We fought, we had problems, we struggled with money and stress and all the normal stuff. But we loved each other. We were building something together. Do you still love her? I'll always love her. She's Maya's mother. She gave me the best thing in my life. But I'm not in love with her anymore. You can't stay in love with someone who's gone. Eventually, you have to let them become a memory instead of a presence. Sabrina was quiet for a moment. I don't talk about James much, about our marriage. You don't have to. No, I want to. If we're doing this, being honest with each other, you should know. She took a breath. I married James because he was safe. Successful, stable, came from the right family. My father approved, which was a first. I thought I could build a life with him, have a family, balance my career with being a wife and mother. I was wrong. What happened? He wanted someone who would make him the center of her universe, who would put his career first, who would be the perfect corporate wife, who would smile and host dinners and not challenge him. And I tried. I really did try to be that person, but I couldn't. Vail Industries was taking off. I was working 18-hour days, and every time I chose a meeting over a dinner party, he'd get a little more resentful, a little more distant. That's on him, not you. Is it? Because he had a point. I wasn't present. I missed Sophie's first words because I was on a business trip to Singapore. I missed her first steps because I was in back-to-back meetings. I was building an empire and missing my daughter's childhood. What kind of mother does that? The kind who's trying to provide for her family. The kind who's building something that will benefit her daughter in the long run. You can't hold yourself to impossible standards, Sabrina. James's new fiancé probably doesn't miss anything. Probably bakes cookies for Sophie's class and volunteers for every field trip. Probably knows all the other parents' names and organizes playdates. All the things I can't manage to do. Caroline's a kindergarten teacher. That's literally her job. You run a billion-dollar company. It's not a fair comparison. But it is to Sophie. To her, Daddy's new girlfriend is fun and available, and probably everything Mommy isn't. Evan reached across the table and took her hand. Sophie loves you. Not Caroline. You. And yeah, maybe you're not going to be room mom or volunteer for every event, but you're her mother. You're the one she wants when she's scared or hurt or happy. That's what matters. How do you always know the right thing to say? I don't. I'm making it up as I go. But I mean it, Sabrina. You're a good mother. Not perfect, but good enough. And good enough is all anyone can be. They finished dinner and moved to the living room with their wine, sitting on opposite ends of the couch like teenagers on a first date, both of them unsure of the rules. Tell me something I don't know about you, Sabrina said. Something you've never told anyone. Evan thought about it. I'm terrified of failing Maya. Every single day I wake up wondering if I'm screwing her up somehow. If she's going to grow up and resent me for not being enough, for not being able to give her the stability she deserves. You're not failing her. She's a happy, well-adjusted kid who clearly adores you. Now. But what about in 10 years, 20? What if she looks back and realizes I made all the wrong choices? Then she'll be a normal adult with normal parent issues. Nobody gets through childhood without some damage. You're doing your best. That's all any of us can do. Your turn. Tell me something I don't know. Sabrina was quiet for a long moment. I'm jealous of you sometimes, of how natural parenting is for you, how you just know what to do with the girls, how you make it look effortless. It's not effortless. I'm terrified most of the time. But you don't show it. You're steady and calm and always seem to have the right answer. I feel like I'm constantly fumbling, constantly getting it wrong. You're not getting it wrong. You're just harder on yourself than you need to be. They talked for hours, drinking wine and sharing stories and slowly letting their guards down. Sabrina told him about growing up in a house where love was conditional and success was the only currency that mattered. Evan told her about his mother's death and how his father had tried his best but never quite knew how to talk about emotions. They talked about their fears and their failures and the ways they'd both been shaped by loss. And somewhere in the middle of it all, they ended up sitting closer together, the space between them shrinking until Sabrina's head was resting on his shoulder and his arm was around her waist. "This is nice," Sabrina said softly. "Just talking. Being honest." "Yeah, it is. I'm still scared." "Me too. But I'm glad we're trying." "Me too." They sat like that until Sabrina started yawning, exhausted from the emotional weight of the evening. Evan walked her to her door, her room in the West Wing, still separate, still maintaining some boundaries, and they stood in the hallway, neither quite ready to say goodnight. "Thank you for tonight," Sabrina said, "for being patient with me, for not pushing. Anytime." She looked up at him, something vulnerable in her expression. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "That kiss. On the courthouse steps. Did you mean it?" Evan's heart kicked against his ribs. "Every second of it." "Good. Because I've been thinking about it for days, wondering if it was real or just adrenaline." "It was real. As real as anything I've ever felt." Sabrina stood on her toes and kissed him softly, briefly, a whisper of contact that said more than words could. When she pulled back, she was smiling, a real smile, unguarded and genuine. "Good night, Evan." "Good night, Sabrina." He walked back to his room in a daze, his lips tingling and his heart full of something that felt dangerously close to hope. They were doing this, actually trying. And for the first time since this arrangement started, Evan let himself believe it might actually work. The next few weeks were both easier and harder than before. Easier because they'd stopped pretending they didn't have feelings for each other. Harder because now they had to figure out how to navigate those feelings while still maintaining the structure of their arrangement. They had more dinners alone after the girls went to bed, started watching movies together in the evenings, sitting close on the couch with Sabrina's head on his shoulder, started texting each other throughout the day. Nothing profound, just small check-ins that made them both feel connected. The girls noticed the shift immediately. Maya started smiling more when she saw them together. Sophie became more affectionate with Evan, trusting him in a way she hadn't before. One Saturday afternoon, all four of them were in the pool, the girls playing Marco Polo while Evan and Sabrina watched from the shallow end. "They're so good together," Sabrina said, watching Sophie shriek with laughter as Maya tagged her. "I can't imagine them not being in each other's lives." "Then let's make sure they don't have to imagine it either." Sabrina looked at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we don't have an expiration date. Maybe we see where this goes, and if it works, if we work, we stay married. For real." "Evan, I know it's fast. I know we're supposed to wait and see. But I also know that I wake up every morning glad you're in my life, that I go to sleep every night hoping tomorrow looks exactly like today. That's not going to change in 8 months or 8 years, so why pretend it will?" Sabrina was quiet for a long moment, watching the girls play. "What if we're wrong? What if this is just, I don't know, Stockholm Syndrome or something? What if we're confusing forced proximity with actual compatibility? Do you really think that's what this is?" "I don't know what this is. That's the problem." "Then let's find out. Let's stop putting timelines on things and just live. Be married. Be a family. See what happens." "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated." Sophie swam over to them, interrupting the conversation. "Mama, can Maya sleep in my room tonight? Please." "I don't know, sweetheart. That's up to Maya's dad." Both girls turned pleading eyes on Evan. He looked at Sabrina, who shrugged with a small smile. "Sure. Why not? But you have to promise to actually sleep. No staying up all night giggling." "We promise," they said in unison, then swam away, already planning their sleepover. "They're not going to sleep," Sabrina said. "Not even a little bit." They ended up checking on the girls around midnight and finding them passed out on Sophie's floor, surrounded by stuffed animals and books, still holding hands. Evan carefully lifted Maya while Sabrina got Sophie, and they tucked both girls into Sophie's bed. Standing in the doorway, watching their daughter sleep, Evan felt the full weight of what they were building. Not just a marriage or an arrangement, but a real family, something worth fighting for. "I meant what I said earlier," he said quietly, "about not wanting an expiration date." "I know you did." Sabrina leaned against him. "I'm starting to think I don't want one either. But I'm still scared. That's okay. Being scared doesn't mean we're doing the wrong thing. It just means we're doing something that matters." Sabrina looked up at him, and in the dim light from the hallway, he could see everything, the hope and fear and growing trust in her eyes. "I think I'm falling for you," she whispered. "I've been trying not to, trying to keep walls up, but I am. I'm falling, and I don't know how to stop." "Then don't stop. Just fall. I'll catch you." "Promise?" "Promise." She kissed him then, soft and slow and full of a promise of her own. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "Come on," Sabrina said, taking his hand. "Let's go to bed." For the first time since this arrangement started, Evan followed her not to separate wings of the house, but to her room. They lay in her bed, fully clothed, just holding each other in the dark. Nothing happened beyond kissing and quiet conversation. But it felt like everything, like a beginning instead of an ending, like something real. "This is crazy," Sabrina murmured against his chest. "We're married, but we're just now getting to the part where we actually like each other. Better late than never." "What if the 6-month evaluation goes badly? What if the judge decides this isn't stable after all?" "Then we'll deal with it, together, because that's what we do now. Together." Together. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other. Two people who'd started as strangers and were slowly becoming something more. Something neither of them had expected, but both of them desperately needed. And for the first time in longer than Evan could remember, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The morning after they'd fallen asleep in Sabrina's room, Evan woke to sunlight and the sound of giggling from down the hall. He was alone in the bed, Sabrina's side already cool, and for a moment he wondered if the night before had been a dream. But then he saw the note on her pillow. "Had to take an early call. Don't let the girls eat only sugar for breakfast." He smiled at that, at the casual intimacy of leaving notes, at the way she'd signed it with just her initial, like they'd been doing this for years instead of one night. Downstairs, he found Maya and Sophie at the kitchen table, still in their pajamas, whispering and giggling over something on Maya's tablet. "What are you two plotting?" They both jumped, guilty expressions on their faces. "Nothing," Maya said too quickly. "We're just looking at pictures," Sophie added. Evan came around to see what they were looking at and felt his heart squeeze. Wedding photos. They'd pulled up the pictures from the courthouse ceremony, the ones Patricia had posted to social media to make the marriage look legitimate. "You look so pretty, Mama," Sophie was saying, scrolling through the images. "And your dad looked happy," Maya said to Sophie. Then to Evan, "You did look happy, Daddy, even though it was just at the courthouse." Just at the courthouse. Like it hadn't been real. Which it hadn't been, not then, but now. "What are you girls really asking?" Evan said gently. Maya and Sophie exchanged a look, having one of those silent conversations kids were so good at. Finally, Maya spoke. "Are you going to have a real wedding, like with a party and dancing and everything?" "Yeah," Sophie added. "Because courthouse weddings don't really count. That's what my friend Emma said. She said her parents had a big wedding with a cake and flowers, and that's what makes it real." Evan sat down at the table, trying to figure out how to answer. "Your mom and I are really married. The courthouse made it legal and official." "But was it special?" Sophie asked. "Mama said when two people love each other, the wedding should be special." The word love hung in the air. Evan thought about the night before, about Sabrina admitting she was falling for him, about the way they'd held each other until sleep came. "It was special to us," he said carefully. "But maybe someday we'll have a party to celebrate. Would you girls like that?" They both nodded enthusiastically, already planning out loud what kind of cake there should be and whether they could wear matching dresses. Sabrina appeared in the doorway, still in her robe, her hair wet from the shower. "What's all this about cake and dresses?" The girls want us to have a real wedding, Evan said. Apparently the courthouse doesn't count. Something flickered across Sabrina's face. Surprise, maybe, or fear, or hope. Is that so? We want to see you get married for real, Maya said, with pretty flowers and music and everything. Because that's what people do when they love each other, Sophie added. Right, Mama? Sabrina met Evan's eyes across the kitchen, and he could see her working through it. They'd spent months pretending, and now their daughters wanted them to make it more real, wanted proof that this family they'd built wasn't going to fall apart. We'll think about it, Sabrina said finally. But right now, how about we get you two dressed and figure out what we're doing today? After the girls ran upstairs, Sabrina poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. Sorry about that. I should have warned you, they've been obsessed with weddings lately. Sophie's been watching some princess movie on repeat. It's fine, they're just trying to make sense of all this. By pushing us into a vow renewal we don't need? Would it be the worst thing? Having a celebration? Making it official in a way that feels real to them? Sabrina set down her mug. Evan, we can barely figure out what we are to each other, adding a public ceremony on top of that. I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm just saying maybe it's not a bad idea, eventually, when we're ready. And when will that be? Because I still don't know what I'm doing here. I'm still figuring out how to be in a relationship that isn't a disaster. How to let someone in without building walls the second things get hard. You're doing fine, am I? Because I woke up this morning in a panic, realized you'd stayed the night and I didn't freak out, didn't push you away, and that terrified me. What if I'm getting too comfortable? What if I mess this up? Evan crossed to her, taking her hands. You're not going to mess this up, and even if you do, even if we both do, we'll figure it out. That's what people in real relationships do. They screw up and forgive each other and try again. I'm not good at the forgiving part, or the trying again part. Then it's a good thing I'm patient. Sabrina leaned into him, her forehead resting against his chest. Why do you put up with me? Because I love you. The words slipped out before Evan could stop them. He felt Sabrina go rigid in his arms, felt the moment stretch and hold. When she pulled back to look at him, her eyes were wide and scared. You can't say that. Why not? It's true. Because I'm not ready to say it back. Because I don't know if I'm capable of loving someone the way they deserve. Because, Sabrina, stop. He cupped her face in his hands. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just telling you the truth. I love you. Messy, complicated, terrified you. I love the way you try so hard at things that don't come naturally. I love the way you look at Sophie like she hung the moon. I love that you're terrible at pancakes, but you keep trying anyway. I love you, all of you. Tears slipped down Sabrina's cheeks. I don't deserve you. That's not your call to make. I get to decide what I deserve, and I've decided I deserve someone who challenges me and frustrates me and makes me want to be better. That's you. I'm so scared of this, of us, of screwing it up so badly that we can't come back from it. Then let's be scared together, but let's not run from it. Not anymore. Sabrina kissed him, desperate and clinging, like she was trying to pour all the words she couldn't say into that contact. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I'm trying, she whispered, to be brave enough for this. For you. I'm trying. I know. That's all I'm asking. The 6-month evaluation came faster than either of them expected. Judge Hendrick's court officer scheduled it for a Tuesday morning, and suddenly Evan and Sabrina were back in that same conference room, waiting to prove their life was stable and real. This time felt different, less like a performance and more like showing someone what they'd actually built. The evaluator was a woman named Dr. Patricia Morrison, who spent 3 hours at their house, talking to the girls separately and together, observing meals and bedtime routines, asking questions designed to reveal inconsistencies. So you share a bedroom now? Dr. Morrison asked, reviewing her notes. Sabrina and Evan exchanged a glance. They'd been sleeping in the same room for 2 months, though they'd been careful not to make a big deal about it around the girls. Yes, Sabrina said. That evolved naturally over time. And the girls are comfortable with the arrangement? No signs of distress or confusion? They're happy, Evan said. Maya and Sophie are basically inseparable at this point. They've adjusted really well. Dr. Morrison made notes. I've observed that. Their relationship seems genuine, close. That's good. She looked up. I do have some concerns about the rapid timeline of this relationship. From meeting to marriage in 3 weeks, now fully cohabitating as a family unit within 6 months. That's fast by any standard. We're aware it's unconventional, Sabrina said, but it works for us. For all of us. Does it? Because I've also reviewed reports from Sophie's school. Her teacher noted that she's become more withdrawn in recent months, less willing to participate in class. When asked about it, Sophie mentioned that she's worried about her family changing again. Sabrina's face went pale. I didn't know that. Her teacher never... The report was filed last week. You may not have received notification yet. Dr. Morrison's expression was neutral, but not unkind. Look, I'm not here to judge your choices. I'm here to assess whether the current arrangement is serving Sophie's best interests. And right now, I'm seeing a child who's adapting but also anxious. That's something we need to address. After Dr. Morrison left, Sabrina sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. She's struggling, and I didn't even know. What kind of mother doesn't notice her own daughter is struggling? The kind who's been dealing with her own struggles, Evan said gently. You can't see everything, Sabrina. Nobody can. But I should have seen this. Should have asked more questions. Should have been more present. Then let's fix it. Let's talk to Sophie, figure out what she needs, and give it to her. They found Sophie in her room doing homework with Maya. When they asked to talk to her alone, Sophie's expression became guarded. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. We just want to check in, see how you're doing. Sabrina sat on the bed, patting the space beside her. Your teacher mentioned you've been a little quiet lately. Is everything okay? Sophie picked at her bedspread. I'm fine. Sophie, you can tell us the truth. If something's bothering you, are you going to get divorced? The question came out in a rush. Like you and Daddy did? Because Emma's parents got remarried and then divorced again and she had to move and change schools, and I don't want to move. I like it here. I like Maya. Sabrina pulled Sophie into her lap, holding her tight. Oh, baby, no, we're not getting divorced. What made you think that? Because you and Evan got married so fast. And Emma said when people get married fast, they get divorced fast too. And I heard Daddy tell Caroline that your marriage probably wouldn't last. Evan felt anger flash hot through him. James was still poisoning Sophie against them, still trying to undermine what they'd built. Listen to me, Sabrina said firmly. What your father said isn't true. Evan and I got married fast, yes. But we're not going anywhere. We're a family now. You, me, Evan, and Maya. That's not changing. Promise? I promise. And I'm sorry if I've been distracted lately. I'm sorry if I haven't been around as much as you need. That's going to change, okay? Starting now. Okay. Sophie snuggled closer. I really like having Evan and Maya here. It feels like we're a real family now. We are a real family. After Sophie went back to playing with Maya, Evan found Sabrina in their bedroom crying. Hey, she's okay. We're okay. She shouldn't have to worry about us getting divorced. She's 5 years old. She should be worried about dolls and cartoon characters, not whether her family's going to fall apart again. But we told her the truth. We're not going anywhere. That's what she needed to hear. What if we're lying? What if we can't make this work long term and she ends up hurt anyway? Sabrina, stop. You can't catastrophize every possibility. We're doing our best. That's all anyone can do. My best has never been enough before. Why would it be enough now? Because you're not alone anymore. You have me. We're doing this together. Sabrina looked at him, her eyes red and swollen. I'm so tired of being scared all the time. Scared of failing her. Scared of losing you. Scared that I'm not capable of being what you both need. Then stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to control every outcome. Just be here. Be present. Love your daughter. And let me love you. That's enough. Is it? It has to be, because perfect doesn't exist. Real does. And what we have? This messy, complicated, beautiful thing we've built? That's real. That's enough. Sabrina kissed him then, soft and grateful, and still a little scared. But scared was okay. Scared meant they were fighting for something that mattered. 2 weeks later, Dr. Morrison's report came back. Evan was at Maya's school for parent-teacher conferences when Sabrina called, her voice shaking. She recommended continued primary custody with me. Said the home environment is stable and the girls are thriving. She noted some concerns about Sophie's anxiety, but said we're addressing them appropriately. Evan, we passed. We actually passed. Relief flooded through him so hard he had to sit down. That's amazing. We did it. We did it. Sabrina's voice broke. I can't believe we actually did it. I never doubted it. Liar. You were as terrified as I was. Okay, yeah. But we did it anyway. That's what counts. That night, they celebrated with takeout and cake, the girls bouncing off the walls with excitement, even though they didn't fully understand what they were celebrating. After bedtime, Evan and Sabrina sat on the back porch, watching stars and processing everything that had happened. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, Sabrina said, for something to go wrong, for this to fall apart. What if it doesn't? What if this is just our life now, our family? Then I guess I need to learn to accept good things when they happen. You think we're a good thing? I think we're the best thing that's ever happened to me, which terrifies me, but also I don't want to run from it anymore. I want to stay. I want to build this with you, for real. Evan took her hand, threading their fingers together. So let's do it. Let's stop calling this an arrangement. Let's just call it what it is. A marriage. A real one. What about the contract? We still have 4 months left. Then we rip it up. We decide right now that this isn't ending in 4 months or 4 years or ever. We're in this. All in. Sabrina turned to face him fully, her eyes bright with tears and hope. You really want that? To stay married to me? Permanently? I proposed to you once before, remember? On that courthouse steps. Admittedly, it was part of a business deal at the time. But I'm proposing again now, for real this time. Stay married to me, Sabrina. Choose this. Choose us. That's not a proposal. That's barely even a question. Evan laughed, then stood and pulled her to her feet. Fine. You want me to do this properly? Evan, you don't have to... But he was already kneeling right there on their back porch, under the stars, with no ring and no plan except the absolute certainty that this was right. Sabrina Vall, you're the most stubborn, driven, complicated woman I've ever met. You make terrible pancakes. You work too much. You overthink everything. You're scared of being vulnerable and you build walls faster than I can knock them down. And I love every single thing about you. I love the way you fight for what matters. I love the way you love our daughters. I love that you're trying so hard to let me in, even when it terrifies you. So I'm asking you right here, right now, will you stay married to me? Will you choose this life we're building? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that you're worth loving exactly as you are? Sabrina was crying fully now, tears streaming down her face. You're an idiot. Is that a yes? You're an idiot for loving me, for putting up with me, for thinking I'm worth all this. Sabrina, yes. Yes, I'll stay married to you. Yes, I choose this. Yes to all of it. She pulled him to his feet and kissed him hard. I love you. I'm terrified and I'm probably going to screw this up 100 times. But I love you. I love you so much it scares me. Say it again. I love you, Evan Cole. I love you and our daughters and this life we've built. I love all of it. They stood on that porch for a long time, holding each other and crying and laughing at the absurdity of it all. Two desperate people who'd made a calculated business deal and somehow found something real in the middle of it. Later that week, Sabrina came home early with news. I told Patricia to draft dissolution papers for the contract. Evan looked up from helping Maya with homework. You did? It's done. The arrangement is officially over. As of today, we're just married. No terms. No conditions. Just us. How does it feel? Terrifying. Amazing. Right. She set down her briefcase. And I did something else. I talked to the board about restructuring my schedule. I'm delegating more, bringing in a COO to handle day-to-day operations. I'll still be CEO, but I won't be working 12-hour days anymore. Sabrina, you don't have to change your whole life. I'm not changing it. I'm balancing it. There's a difference. I built Vale Industries so I could provide for Sophie, give her opportunities I never had. But what's the point if I miss her childhood doing it? I want to be there for dance recitals and parent-teacher conferences and pancake disasters. I want to be present. Not just physically, but actually present. Are you sure? I'm sure. This, our family, this is what matters. Everything else is just noise. Maya looked up from her math worksheet. Does this mean you'll be home for dinner more? Sabrina smiled. Yeah, sweetheart. I'll be home for dinner more. Good. Because Daddy's a better cook, but you're getting better. Your pancakes only taste a little like cardboard now." Everyone laughed at that, and Sabrina pulled Maya into a hug. "High praise, I'll take it." The girls went back to their homework, and Evan followed Sabrina to the kitchen. "You really okay with this, stepping back from the company?" "I'm not stepping back. I'm stepping into balance. And yeah, I'm okay with it. More than okay. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm making the right choice instead of just the expected one. I'm proud of you." "Don't be proud yet. Ask me again in 6 months when I'm going crazy from not working 80 hours a week. I'll keep you busy. Promise." That weekend, they told the girls about the decision to stay married permanently. Maya and Sophie reacted exactly as expected, shrieking with joy and immediately demanding to know when the real wedding would be. "We'll plan something," Sabrina promised. "Something small, just family and close friends. Maybe this summer?" "Can we have a bounce house?" Maya asked. "Can we have a chocolate fountain?" Sophie added. "We'll see," Evan said, exchanging an amused look with Sabrina. "Let's start with the basics first." They planned it for August, on the lawn of the Westchester house. Nothing huge. Maybe 50 people, mostly family, and a few close friends. Maria helped with coordination. Patricia handled logistics. The girls picked out matching purple dresses and practiced walking down an imaginary aisle for weeks. Diana Cross was invited, of course. She showed up to one of the planning sessions with a bottle of expensive champagne. "I have to admit, when you first came to me with this scheme, I thought you were both insane," she said, pouring glasses for Evan and Sabrina. "A contract marriage to win a custody battle? It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Sabrina said dryly. "But I was wrong. You didn't just convince the court, you convinced yourselves. You built something real out of something fake, and that's—" Diana raised her glass. "That's actually kind of beautiful. So here's to being wrong. And to you two being stubborn enough to make this work." They clinked glasses, and Evan felt the weight of how far they'd come. From strangers in a business transaction to people who'd chosen each other again and again, until the choice became permanent. The night before the wedding, Evan couldn't sleep. He got up and found Sabrina sitting on the back porch, the same place he'd proposed for real. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Too many thoughts. Wondering if we're doing this right. If we should have just kept it quiet instead of making a whole thing of it." The girls wanted a celebration. We're giving them one. "I know. But what if we're setting ourselves up for failure, making promises we can't keep? Sabrina, we've been married for almost a year. We've made it through custody battles and evaluations and learning to live together. Tomorrow isn't about making new promises. It's about celebrating the ones we've already kept." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just didn't notice because you were too busy being terrified." She laughed at that, leaning into him. "I'm still terrified, but it's a different kind of terror now. Less about failing and more about, I don't know, being happy. Is that weird?" "It's not weird. It's human. You're not used to letting yourself be happy." "No, I'm not, but I'm learning." She looked up at the stars. "Rachel would have liked you." Evan was startled by that. "My Rachel?" "Yeah, Maya talks about her sometimes. About how she used to make up songs and dance around the kitchen. About how she always found the good in things. I think she would have liked that you found someone to build a life with, even if it happened in the weirdest possible way. She would have liked you too, would have appreciated how hard you try, how much you love Sophie. I wish I could have met her, wish I could thank her for raising Maya to be so open and loving. That's not easy to do when you're grieving. She was a good mom. Not perfect, but good. Kind of like you." Sabrina smiled at that. High praise. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Finally, Sabrina spoke again. "I never thought I'd have this. A real marriage, a real family, someone who sees all my flaws and loves me anyway." "Same. After Rachel died, I figured that was it for me. One shot at love and I'd used it up. But then you came along and proved me wrong. We're quite a pair, both of us convinced we couldn't have this, both of us wrong. So tomorrow, when we stand up there in front of everyone and say our vows, what are you going to say?" "I don't know. The truth, I guess. That I didn't expect you. That I fought this every step of the way. That you kept showing up anyway until I couldn't fight anymore. That choosing you every day is the best decision I've ever made." That's pretty good. What about you? Evan thought about it. I'll probably say something about how you're terrible at pancakes, but I love you anyway. How you make me want to be braver. How our daughters have taught me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice. And I choose you. Every single day, I choose you. We're going to make everyone cry. Probably, but they'll be happy tears. Yeah, they will be. The wedding itself was perfect in the way real things are perfect, which is to say, messy and imperfect and completely genuine. It rained in the morning, so they had to move everything under a tent. Sophie spilled juice on her dress 5 minutes before the ceremony and had to wear Maya's backup outfit. The minister they'd hired got stuck in traffic, so Diana ended up officiating after pulling up the ceremony script on her phone. But none of that mattered, because when Evan stood at the front of that tent and watched Sabrina walk toward him, not down an aisle alone but with both girls beside her, Maya holding one hand and Sophie holding the other, his heart felt so full he thought it might burst. She looked beautiful, but that wasn't what got him. It was the expression on her face, open, happy, unguarded in a way he'd never seen before. Like she'd finally stopped being scared of this, of them, of letting herself have something good. The ceremony was short. Diana kept it simple, talking about how sometimes the best love stories start in the most unexpected ways. How sometimes two people find each other not in spite of difficult circumstances, but because of them. How family is built through choice and commitment and showing up every single day, even when it's hard. When it came time for vows, Evan went first. He'd written something down, but ended up abandoning his notes halfway through, speaking straight from his heart instead. Sabrina, a year ago, you offered me a deal. Marriage for money, stability for security. And I took it because I was desperate and out of options. But somewhere along the way, the deal stopped being about survival and started being about love. You taught me that it's okay to be scared and do it anyway. That being vulnerable isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing we can do. You love our daughters with everything you have, even when you think it's not enough. Spoiler alert, it's always been enough. You're enough, and I promise to spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you know it. Sabrina was crying by the time he finished. She wiped at her eyes, laughing at herself, then took a shaky breath. Evan, I'm not good with words, or feelings, or basically anything that doesn't involve spreadsheets and business plans. But you've been patient with me anyway. You've seen me at my worst, controlling, closed off, terrified of everything, and you stayed. You showed me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, about trying, about choosing each other even when it's messy and hard and nothing like what you planned. So I promise to keep showing up, to keep trying, to keep choosing you and our girls in this beautiful, messy life we've built. Every single day, for the rest of my life, I choose this. I choose us. There wasn't a dry eye under that tent. Even Diana was crying, and she was supposed to be the professional. They exchanged rings, real ones this time, not the quick purchases Patricia had made for the courthouse wedding. Evan's was a simple platinum band. Sabrina's had a small inscription inside. We choose each other. When Diana pronounced them married, again, for real this time, and told Evan he could kiss his bride, he did, slow and soft and full of promise. The kind of kiss that said, this is just the beginning. The reception was exactly what the girls had wanted. A bounce house, a chocolate fountain, terrible dancing, and more cake than anyone needed. Evan watched Sabrina laugh with Sophie, watched Maya drag Sabrina onto the dance floor, watched their families blend into something new and real. At one point, Tommy, his father's old friend, pulled Evan aside. Your dad would be proud, you know, of all this, of you. Yeah? He told me once, right before he died, that he thought you'd found something good, that Sabrina was going to be good for you and Maya. Guess he was right. Evan felt his throat tighten. Yeah, he was. He also said marriage was about showing up every day. Looks like you took that advice to heart. Tried my best. Later, when most of the guests had left and the girls were crashed on the couch in their fancy dresses, Evan found Sabrina on the back porch again. Their spot. Hey, wife. She smiled at that. Hey, husband. Good party? The best, though I could have done without the part where Sophie pushed me into the chocolate fountain. That was pretty funny, though. For you, maybe. I'm still finding chocolate in weird places. They stood together, watching the last of the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Evan pulled Sabrina close, and she melted into him in a way that still felt like a gift every time. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually built something real." "We did." "I keep thinking about what your father said, about marriage being about showing up. He was right. That's all this is. Just showing up for each other every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." "Yeah, especially then." Sabrina turned to look up at him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me. Underneath all the walls and defense mechanisms. For loving me anyway. For being patient while I figured out how to let you in. For showing me that I could have this, love, family, happiness, even though I didn't think I deserved it." "You always deserved it. You just needed someone stubborn enough to convince you of that. Lucky for me, I married the most stubborn man alive. Lucky for me, I married the most stubborn woman alive. We're a perfect match." They kissed as the sun set. Two people who'd started as strangers become partners out of desperation and ended up as something more. Something real. Something worth fighting for. Inside the house, Maya and Sophie stirred from their nap, immediately resuming the energy of two kids who'd had way too much cake. They ran outside, still in their fancy dresses, and threw themselves at Evan and Sabrina. "Can we have another wedding?" Sophie asked. "Absolutely not," Sabrina said. "One is plenty." "But it was so fun." "We'll have other celebrations, birthdays, holidays, regular Tuesdays, but one wedding is enough." "Fine," Maya said, then grinned. "But we're keeping the bounce house, right?" Everyone laughed at that, and they went inside as a family. A real one. The kind built on choice and commitment and the daily decision to show up for each other. That night, after the girls were finally, truly asleep, Evan and Sabrina lay in their bed, no longer separate rooms, no longer pretending, and talked about the future. "What do you want?" Sabrina asked. "Long term, years from now, what does our life look like?" Evan thought about it. "This, exactly this. You and me and the girls, maybe some more celebrations along the way, maybe some challenges we can't predict, but us together, figuring it out as we go." "That's it? That's your whole vision?" "That's everything. What about you?" "I want to be present. I want to watch Sophie grow up. I want to be there for Maya too. I want to build Vale Industries into something Sophie can be proud of, not something that stole her mother from her. And I want you, every day, even when I'm being impossible. Especially when you're being impossible. That's when you need me most." "I do need you. I hate admitting it, but I do. You make me better. Make me want to be better. You make me braver. Make me believe in things I thought I'd lost." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two people who'd found love in the most unexpected place, in a business deal that became a real marriage, in desperation that became hope, in pretending that became truth. The next morning, Evan woke to the sound of giggling and whispered plotting from down the hall. He smiled, knowing exactly what that meant. Sure enough, moments later, Maya and Sophie came running in, jumping on the bed. "We made breakfast," Maya announced. "You did?" Sabrina sat up, alarmed. "Unsupervised?" "Maria helped," Sophie clarified, "but we did all the important stuff." They dragged Evan and Sabrina downstairs to find the kitchen table set with burned toast, scrambled eggs that were slightly rubbery, and pancakes that were, well, they were an attempt. "We made pancakes," Sophie said proudly, "like Mama's." "They're perfect," Sabrina said, pulling both girls into hugs. "Absolutely perfect." And they were. Not because they were well made or because they looked good or because they tasted like anything other than slightly burned flour, but because they were made with love, with effort, with two little girls trying to show their parents that family was about more than perfect pancakes or perfect anything. It was about showing up, about trying, about choosing each other every single day. As they sat around that table eating terrible pancakes and laughing about the mess in the kitchen, Evan looked at his family, his real, chosen, messy, perfect family, and felt a peace he'd never known before. This was what his father meant, this daily choice to show up, to be present, to love even when it was hard. This was what Rachel would have wanted for him. This was what he'd been desperate enough to take a crazy deal from a stranger to find. And he'd found it. Not in the way he expected, not in the circumstances he would have chosen, but he'd found it all the same. Love wasn't about perfect circumstances or perfect people. It was about two imperfect people making the daily choice to build something together, to fight for it, to show up for it, to choose it again and again until the choice became permanent. And that was exactly what they'd done, what they'd keep doing every single day for the rest of their lives, because that was what family meant. That was what love meant. That was what mattered. Not the contract that started it, not the custody battle that tested it, but the choice they made every day to keep building, keep trying, keep showing up for each other. That was the real victory. Not winning in court, not fooling anyone, but finding something real in the middle of something fake. Finding love where they least expected it, finding each other. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Sonnet 4.5.